All right, thank you. Acting Chair Larios, you may begin.
Thank you. Welcome to the July 12th, 2021 Zoning Code Update Study Session. I believe we'll now have a presentation by staff.
Yes, thank you. Since May, the Planning Commission has reviewed several draft chapters of the Zoning Code Update. This will be our last study session. Staff is anticipating bringing the entire Zoning Code Update to the Commission in late September. The purpose of this study session is to review permit processing procedures, which is Article 6, and zoning ordinance administration, which is Article 7. While much of the zoning code provides regulations and standards for each zoning district throughout the city, Articles 6 and 7 focus on administration of the zoning code and planning permits. So I thought this evening we can break it up into two sections, and then we can take public comment at the end of each with your questions and discussions in between. So first, let's start off with Article 6, which is permit processing procedures. Article 6 establishes the overall structure for the application, review, and action on city-required permit applications. It identifies and describes the permits and other approvals required by this zoning ordinance. Table 6-1 on pages 3 and 4 provides a list of actions and permits and identifies the type of review required by the director, the Planning Commission, and City Council. Administrative permits are reviewed by the director and staff. They include permits such as accessory dwelling unit permits, design review minor, home occupation permits, minor modifications, and minor use permits. Quasi-judicial permits are reviewed by the Planning Commission and include permits such as conditional use permits, major design review, special permits, and variances. Lastly, Article 6 provides application requirements, review procedures, and required findings for each of these types of permits, including 2 permits which do not currently exist in the zoning code: minor use permits and temporary use permits. Approval of minor use permits and temporary use permits would be issued by the director unless they're called up for review. Minor use permits would be required for certain uses in each zoning district, and these are identified in the land use tables for each zoning district. The uses that fall in this category have been determined to be generally compatible with surrounding uses, but require some level of review by staff and surrounding property owners. Examples include commercial recreation uses in the II or Innovation Industrial District, bars and taverns in the Rawlins Road Mixed Use District, and daycare centers in the California Mixed Use District. Temporary use permits would allow for short-term activities that would be compatible with adjacent and surrounding uses. A temporary land use activity is defined as a land use that is interim, non-permanent, and or seasonal in nature, lasting from 1 to 30 days and generally not more than 30 consecutive days. Temporary land uses would include off-site contractor construction sites for things like staging and storage, farmers markets, special events, real estate sales offices, other temporary structures, and temporary work trailers. So that summarizes the review of Article 6. I know it's a lengthy article. There's a lot of details in there in terms of how we process things, and we'll do our best to try to answer your questions. It is fairly lengthy, and it's been a little time since we've reviewed it, but if you had any questions as you were going through it, I would point out, for example, that one of the larger sections in there is the accessory dwelling permit, and that is a fairly new code section. So, you could comment on that definitely, but it's something that was passed not too long ago by the city. So does anyone have any questions? And then after questions and comments, we can take any public comment. That's okay.
Yeah. Okay, Commissioner Terrones, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So just a couple of questions and a couple comments. So Ruben, under applications, preparation and file, or excuse me, I'm sorry, under multiple permit, sorry, you back up. Application preparation and filing, is there, is there somewhere specific? I know it talks about criteria for review of applications, but is there somewhere specific where it says that either the community development director or whoever the community development director directs or assigns can waive a requirement within an application? You know, because we have applications that come before us, particularly on the residential side, where we have varying degrees of experience and knowledge, you know, with our process. And some applications are very thorough, and some applications are, you know, there may be a few things, something missing, a landscape plan or something of that sort. But there may be some situations where something within an application may not be a requirement. So is there somewhere specific that says there is the authority to waive a requirement or something on the checklist, or is that buried within the checklists?
So would an example be, you know, if an application triggers design review, for example, maybe doing a small second story enlargement, for example, would the director be able to waive, let's say, a landscape plan requirement?
Right.
Something of that nature?
Yeah. Does that need to be codified, or is that just more a procedural thing that's sort of within the descriptions of the checklist requirements?
The way we currently do it now is we do leave it up to staff to make that determination.
Okay.
However, we will make note of that. I think it would be a better idea to codify it somehow.
Yeah.
You know, because we're always looking for clarity in this in terms of.
Right.
And so.
Yeah, and I've had clients ask me, you know, for example, you know, do I really need that document, or do I really need that drawing? You know, is that a requirement? And if I explain to them that, you know, it's on a checklist, well, you know, they want to sort of argue with me, you know, or yeah. So if there's something that I could point to that says, here's a requirement, we can ask for a waiver of that, you know, so, you know, something codified, I guess.
Yeah, and it could be a simple statement that says, based on review by the staff of the director, you know, materials shall be, you know, determined by that person or by the authority. Okay.
All right. Another question then, moving on. I'm looking at page 25, and under applicability and types of design review, we have various different A, B, C, and we have under design review. We have single unit and two unit dwellings, multi-units, commercial. Then we have a specific paragraph on the BAC zoning district and parcels with frontage along California Drive and Highland Avenue between Burling Avenue and Howard Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall why there was something so specific for those particular parcels that we have that in there? It seems odd that we've identified those specific parcels and say for any changes to the front facade or any facade facing public, private, blah, 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 et cetera, are required to go through design review unless they qualify for minor design review.
Right. I think the intent here was to, so the BAC district includes those other streets, and we wanted to make sure that that was clear to the reader, that it's not just buildings that have frontage on Burlingame Avenue, but includes, well, so right now, I believe the code just talks about Burlingame Avenue.
Okay.
And these streets, because they're within the BAC district, it's part of the downtown district. So that should be extended to those streets.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. Well, then that helps. I withdraw my question then.
Yeah.
Okay. Then moving on, another question for, on page 26, we talk about major design review, application review, and processing. We have the various different findings for, you know, single unit and two dwelling units, multi-units, you know, the list of 1 through 8, you know, and then we've got sort of what I call the big 5, for example, you know, compatibility of architectural style, respect for the parking, you know, all the things that we, you know, the findings that we have to make. Right. So my question is, maybe it's to all of us, or maybe it's just to staff. Should we require a one-page statement, you know, from an applicant that addresses the specific findings in each one of these categories? For example, for a single family unit, dwelling unit, or duplex, there would be the 5 criteria where they specifically address how they are addressing those findings, and, you know, sort of helping us to help them make those findings. So it would be the 5 in category C. There would be the 6 for multi-unit dwellings. For commercial, it's, I think it's 6 or 7. So we say that the burden of proof is on the applicant in the following paragraph. But my question is, would it be helpful if we just had them make a one-page statement that addressed each one of those findings, almost like a special permit or variance applications where, they have to answer these 5 questions and how they've addressed them?
Right. Yeah, it's very similar. That's a great point. I mean, it's very similar to what we ask applicants to complete for the conditional use permit, variance findings, special permit findings. We could create a form that asks them to address how they are consistent with these findings here. So we could look to see if that has to be included in this section, or could it be merely a form that we create?
Right. I'm sort of, looking at it from 2 angles. One, it helps the applicant know, what it is that they need to address and how is their project going to be evaluated. Almost, similar to what we've talked about, making things more objective, while all the while there's some subjectivity in terms of interpretation of these things. But if they can make the argument and, sort of an objective argument that shows how they've addressed these issues and why we can make those findings, we could then debate with them whether or not they've addressed them adequately. And but it just might help us and remind us as the commission that these are the findings that we need to make, and we can evaluate the project based on some of those simple criteria on a regular basis as each project comes up.
Right. Yeah, and in general, I find that in your review of projects, many you ask them at the meeting, how do you think it's compatible with the lines? This would at least have, like you said, help them to think about it ahead of time, but it will also give you that information ahead of the meeting as well.
Yeah, it helps sort of tee it up. I mean, if we can have a process where, like I've said to some of my clients, if you can take it to the point where the commission can just say yes, 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 it helps you, it helps the city, it helps the process, and it's, the arguments are already made bare. So,
right.
Okay. I think my last question no, I'm sorry, 2 more questions, but my last question, or second to last question, my penultimate question, should we have more specific detail on the Hillside area permits?
So I was looking at that earlier today. We do have a separate section for Hillside area permits under our overlay. There's an overlay chapter that talks about all the different overlays in Burlingame.
Okay.
That we had not brought to you during the last couple study sessions. That overlay section does look at more in detail kind of what you're looking for in terms of the Hillside area permit, what things would trigger Hillside area permit. So while probably it would have been a good idea to have that alongside this, you will see that when it comes forward with the entire zoning code update. But yeah, this talks more about the processing.
Okay.
That other section gets into a little bit more of the detail of what you're looking for when reviewing area permits.
Yeah, because we've always, for as long as I've been on the commission, we've kind of struggled because there isn't a lot of detail in that one paragraph about the Hillside area permits. And it's sort of left it to our interpretation, and then whatever precedents we've set over the course of the last X years as sort of, well, we've always interpreted it this way, at least for the last X years that any particular commissioner has been on the commission.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
And I would say that even in that section, in working with our consultant and looking at what other cities do, very difficult to quantify that.
Okay.
Right? Because it's really hard to look at percentages and heights and how much and what is a view blockage. So I think we did our best, and perhaps we can provide that section to you, ahead of the zoning code update. But it was, we admit, it was difficult to come up with something that's very clear to follow because views are just so right, and different angles and where you sit on a hillside, and it's not as easy to do, we found. So but that'll come forward to you as part of the entire zoning code update.
Okay. All right. And then my last question is in regards to time to implement and time extensions. So we have the paragraph here that says to ensure continued compliance, permit or approval shall be exercised within 24 months. So that's, am I reading that correctly? That's basically where we say that an approval is good for 2 years?
Correct. Under current code, we say 1 year, but
Yeah.
just based on our experience of approvals, by the time a project can get its financing in order, construction, we see many come back for 1 year extensions.
Right.
They're generally approved automatically. We just felt it would be better to start with a 2-year approval.
So we're bumping that up to 2 years. Okay.
Yeah, right.
I agree. I think that makes sense. Now, and this paragraph applies specifically for planning approvals, correct? I mean, in other words,
Correct.
building permit approvals is a separate thing. That's not
correct.
That's not what this is addressing. Okay.
Yeah, the building permit approvals, I think, are based on the valuation of the project. They have a table they follow.
Right.
But this would be for planning entitlements.
Got it. Okay. All right. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Taranis. Commissioner Say.
Thank you. I'm taking, you're not looking for typo corrections, are you?
Let us know those too. Sure, why
I
not?
only found one. I mean, I was just asking, but I found one. There may be more, but I'll just start with that. On page 2, on item B, quasi judicial permits and actions. Additionally, the director may refer judicial actions as opposed to
yeah.
not refer.
Right. Not
Okay,
mine.
but the main question on that one, though, as I saw it, as I was coming up with my question, is so it says that the following items require a public hearing. So 1 through 6 all require being at a public hearing, such as planning commission meeting, correct?
Correct.
So then I guess my question is on page 4. There is table 6-1, the review authority. If comprehensive sign programs are required to be before a public hearing, would the planning commission have something in that column as opposed to nothing? And it's just a dashed line there for.
Yeah, let me check that. Yeah, it should probably say decision for that. So we'll make note of that. And then it would have to say appeal under council. So
Right.
it may have been one of those things where we discussed after this was prepared. But we'll make sure that gets corrected. And our consultant is now going through the entire, I should say that consultant is going through the entire code update right now, double checking and cross-referencing items to catch these sort of inaccuracies. So, but we'll make sure that that gets corrected.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then under, I think this falls under design review major. We have often enough FYIs that, cross our agenda, and that's not defined anywhere in here. Would that help to add something about FYIs, or maybe is in here and I missed it? That is an item that would come before the planning commission if someone were to pull it.
Right. I do recall, and I don't know exactly where in the section it is, but I do recall that, and I don't think we called it FYIs. I mean, we all know what that term is, but the general public doesn't know. But there are, I believe, one of the sections addresses minor changes to approved design review projects, where the director then decides which should go forward to the planning commission or not. I'll see if I can find that during our discussion, but I do recall we did include that to address the FYIs.
Oh, okay, great. My next item is, I'm just going to go through kind of by page. So page 7, the pre-application conference. Item D, it says a prospective applicant is encouraged to request a pre-application conference. I wonder if there's something that we can do beyond just encouraging, especially for new parties, new to submissions in our city, just to kind of help them, not come before us before they find out, that they can't do this or that, but could put them on a straight path sooner and setting expectations.
Sure. Are you referring, 'cause generally we strongly recommend it for larger major projects, like an office project, hotel project. Are you referring to perhaps single family dwellings where it's a new or an architect or designer that's not done any work in Burlingame? Is that the direction you're looking at?
Yeah, I mean, larger projects, I think, tend to have a different level of professionalism and experience before they would bring a large project before as a commercial project or a large multifamily residential. But I think more on the single family residential or even, duplexes, that type of project, just to, there's so many people who come from outside of our area, and I think it would just be helpful for them to have some type of pre-meeting to know what's coming, what to expect.
Yeah. We can look into that. We'll probably have to refer to our assistant city attorney or city attorney just to make sure we're not singling out certain type of architect or designer. We just have to be a little careful with that. So, but we
Yeah, I
can.
understand that. Yeah, or maybe there's a way beyond just encouraging.
Yeah, I mean, we could also prepare like an informational handout that we can give to everyone when they're submitting, and kind of pinpoint here are the things to expect as you're going through the design review process. So at least they can take a look at that and know what's ahead of them in terms of processing their application.
Okay, great. On page 8, talking about the ADUs, I think that's ADUs. Initial application review for, maybe that's not ADUs yet, but where you have notification of applicant within 30 days or 30 calendar days of application filing, applicant will be informed in writing. So I know that can change depending on your workload and how many projects get submitted to your department, and staff level and staff hours are fixed. I'm wondering if you are don't list a date or a number of days, or be a little bit more conservative on that, just so that someone doesn't pin you down on, well, it's been 30 days, I need to have an answer.
Right. Yeah, we'll look into that. Permit streamlining, it does require 30 days. I think in most of our applicants have been understanding in some situations where, we have a lot of projects that we're reviewing, but we can circle back to our consultant and see if that number can change, or, are we required to keep it at 30?
Oh, okay. Well, yes, because I'm just speaking from experience on recent submissions of ADUs, for example, I've been told 40 to 45 days for first comment. So, that's a planning application. And so that falls under that category. And unless it's a separate, number of days you want to establish for ADU submission specifically, just to.
Right.
But I'm sorry to interrupt, but isn't there a difference there, Audrey, there is a difference between being notified of your comment, receiving your comments? This is describing being notified that your application is complete. Right?
And has been, been accepted for processing. Okay, I see. You're right. It's not about comments.
Right. And the only reason, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the only reason I was saying that is because that was my understanding of the streamline and permitting requirement. It's that you're notified that your application is complete. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're receiving comments. It's just, okay, your application is now complete and we're reviewing it. That usually comes at less than 30 days. It still takes additional time to get your comments though.
Yes, no, that's true. Thank you for that correction. I was thinking about receiving comments.
Yeah, okay.
It's 40 to 45 days for ADU comments, I think, right now. But yes, 30 days would be more than sufficient, I think, to notify about process. Yes.
Yeah, and in general, I mean, we strive to provide you with comments as well within the 30 days. I mean, that is our, division goal. So that's driving forward to keep it consistent with that.
Yes, so sorry for that confusion. You can delete that request to the city attorney. So page 24, C1E, an increase to the height of the existing plate line of a single unit or 2-unit dwelling. would there be, like you established with item D? Oh, no, D, which one that talks about, oh yes, D, plate height no greater than 9 feet above existing finished floor. On a similar vein, could you do something with item E just to limit the number of applications that would have to come before the planning commission? If, you know, he says basically any increase in the height of an existing plate line, could there be some type of agreeable, most plate heights are 8 feet, but you know, if you're going to 8.6 or 9, then you would have to, you could bypass coming before us.
Yes, I mean, that we would love to hear that feedback from the commission. You know, right now, a lot of this reflects the current code, but certainly if we want to make that more specific and allow for a little bit more kind of wiggle room, because as you all know, in the construction industry, not every plate height existing is 8 foot or 8'1". You have varying plate heights by a couple inches. So yes, if we can clarify E a little bit more and say any increase by more than 1 foot, or you know, whatever you want to, you know, consider, that would be great to provide that clarity.
Yeah.
So the other commissioners might have some thoughts on that too.
Okay, great. And you're saying that's something that should come from us as a unit making that type of request? Or
Sure. I mean, I think I would love to
hear.
hear discussion on it from other commissioners, see if they agree with that or not. You know, the options are to leave it as is, or we can entertain a more specific trigger. So like you said, it could be an additional 1 foot or 6 inches, you know, whatever it may be.
Or setting it to 9 feet like you have with item D.
Right.
Okay, well, I'll let others chime in on that later on. So following on Commissioner Taronis's comment about the kind of like that 1-page statement for people to address that they've met the design guidelines and et cetera. I think I'd shared before to the planning department that, you know, some cities have, you know, make submissions throughout the peninsula and the Bay Area. And I like where there is a document that you would have to fill in as an applicant, where you kind of justify your design in certain architectural elements, whether it may be that you want to put a detached or an attached garage on the home, and that's different from what it is now, but you would have to establish that in the neighborhood, how many homes have that same type of style. Same thing could be applied to roof forms or a front porch, a certain architectural style, things like that. I think that that's helpful. I could share with you if you wanted to, you know, obviously offline, one that I had to do for a city in the nearby area. And it was very thorough and it was pretty easy to fill out. And it gives you some awareness as an applicant, how well your design fits into the neighborhood. And that would kind of help, again, an applicant have a better process through the Planning Commission and through the Planning Department.
Sure. Yeah. If you can forward that to us, we'd love to take a look at that. And it could be something that's attached to their design review findings form, where they have to indicate how they're meeting the findings. And then we can ask them to fill out an attachment as well. Anything that'll help you, review a project better, that would be great. So yeah, we welcome that.
Okay. Yeah. I'll forward that to you. Under Hillside area construction permits, sorry guys, I think this might be my last one. About the Hillside area, I'm wondering if we could add something about story poles being a requirement right off the bat, if there is a potential of blocking anyone's kind of distant bay views. Like we could specify exactly what views. We know that not necessarily any views, but distant bay views. So that, again, an applicant could be more prepared to be before the Planning Commission and hopefully have a successful approval.
And I can double check our overlay district guidelines for the Hillside, see if that's in there. I don't recall off the top of my head, but now when you say when there's a potential, who would make that determination? I'm not sure if we're prepared to have staff go out there and make that determination if there's a potential. Generally, we hear about concerns from neighbors, after the public hearing is noticed, right? So it might be late, although generally, when you hear concerns, the commission is pretty good about requiring story polls, during the initial study session.
Well, I guess maybe even just an encouragement, right? Encourage that should a neighbor, we're going to be looking at a project tonight where we have that next door neighbor essentially view is blocked. So certainly you can't anticipate a hill away or great number of distance away, but certainly immediate neighbors right around the property at large, that would be something to consider. So if you feel that you may be in that situation, put the story polls up and be more inviting to engaging with your adjacent neighbors in the discussion.
Okay, we can look at perhaps adding some language, and that goes both ways. Sometimes adding the story polls will confirm that there is no view blockage, so it's helpful in those situations.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Gall, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. I just had one line of questioning, and as I was reading through the section on home occupation permits, I remember a discussion that we had previously about live workspaces, and I was just wondering do we actually have requirements for the live workspace? Do those people that buy those, are they required to buy a business license from the city of Burlingame? Or part of our discussion at one point was, what's the difference between a live workspace and a condo? But the live workspace we approved on California Drive, but essentially, if you don't have a business license, you could say, yeah, I do whatever, and yeah, it's my business, but in fact, it's just a condo.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we should develop something that sort of sets up the parameters for what establishes and what constitutes a live workspace versus a condo.
Okay. And that could be something not necessarily in the home occupation permit section, but it sounds like looking at more live work type criteria in the code somewhere.
Right. I just want to close a loophole if that in fact exists. And as far as Commissioner Say's concerned about the plate heights, I'm a little confused, I guess, because if let's say we approved a plan of a 2-story house with a 10-story first floor plate and a 9-story second floor plate, and they came in and they said, well, no, we just want to go another foot upstairs, so it's 10 and 10. I think that would impact the design significantly. I don't know, and I see in here it says, I think you went up to 9 feet, that it could be administrative, and I think that would be okay. But I think that, you could potentially have somebody come in with a 12-foot plate height on their first floor and go, well, we just want to go to 13. So I don't know that if we just make it a number of additional footage, that's the right way to do it. I think we need to have a hard line somewhere.
So just a point of clarification, if a project gets approved with, let's say, a 10-foot plate on the ground floor, and either before construction or during construction, they want to increase that plate, we would actually have that come back as an amendment. That particular section talks about existing homes where into the home, they might want a 1-foot plate height increase. I think that's what Audrey was referring to, is you have an existing, you're coming in to do an addition and you want to increase the plate height over existing.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
But definitely, if something's been approved and they want to change that, then that would not just be an administrative approval. That would come back to you for an approval.
Right. Even if it was something that was approved 5 years ago and built, and now they decided they want to change the roof line or something, and
well, that would be considered an addition at that point.
Okay.
And finalized, it's been built, final inspection's been done, it's closed out. So someone, I suppose, could. There's no timeline, right? So whether it's 5 years, 1 year after, that would be considered an addition in that case because it's been finalized already.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gall. Commissioner Camarado, please go ahead. We can't hear you.
Okay, here you go.
There we go.
So I think one of the questions I have, and I'm on the same, carrying on with Commissioner Gall's idea, was what if you have an existing home that has a 10-foot plate height and somebody wants to come in and do a 2nd-story addition? and, you can't really do an 8-foot, well, I don't know. And this is more architectural for the architects and planning commission. Can you do an 8-foot on the second floor, and how would that look? I guess it depends on what kind of style it is, right? But there are a number of properties in Burlingame that have 10, 11-foot plate heights on the first floor. And somebody may just want to come in and just do an addition up at the top, second floor addition.
So we do have, if you recall, I think it was at the last study session, we do specify now plate height requirements for first floor and second floor. I believe it's 9 foot on the first floor, 8 foot on the second floor. If you want to increase or vary from that, it requires a special permit. So I think in that special permit process, like in that situation, Commissioner Camarado, they would have to justify why they want a taller than 8-foot plate height on the second floor. And that could be tied to the existing plate height on the first floor, right? So,
Got it.
It may look unusual.
Extraordinary circumstances, right?
Yeah, or for consistency, I can let some of the other commissioners speak too, but for consistency, maybe a 10 and 8 on the second floor is not proportional, right? So they can try to make the findings that a 9-foot plate height might be proportional on the second floor.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Commissioner Camarado. Commissioner Say, you have your hand up.
Oh, yes, sorry. I just wanted to not close out this discussion, but to continue this discussion or clarify what I was intending with that item about the additional plate height was just to make it a simpler process or lessen the number of applications that would come before the Planning Commission. If we were to limit, let's say, a home that's at 8-foot plate height and wants to raise to a 9-foot plate height, get some ceiling height in the space, that would be an application that wouldn't necessarily have to come to the Planning Commission if we were to set some type of limit. I wasn't trying to advocate for a 12-inch increase no matter what your plate height is, but maybe for all the 8-foot plate height homes to be able to more easily increase to a 9-foot plate height and put a new roof on their home without having to come before the Planning Commission. So I just want to clarify that.
Right. So that's a good point, because a 1-foot increase could be a 1-foot increase over an existing 10-foot plate, and that's not perhaps what you intended, but perhaps allowing them to go to a 9-foot plate without design review, that seems more reasonable, I think, in this case, where we see a lot of 9-foot plates on the ground floor, so it could be consistent with that. Okay.
Great, thank you so much. Director Huron, I think we now open it up to the public in case anybody has any public comments.
Right. So if anyone in the public would like to speak on this particular item, please raise your hand. We did receive one email under public comment, so we can let Jennifer Pfaff speak first, and then I can also read the public comment.
Oh, hi there. Great comments, everybody. Mike, I kind of am concentrating on one page that I thought could potentially make problems, but maybe I'm just thinking too far into it. It is page 36, minor modifications. And it appeared to me that first of all, I think there needs to be clarification. Is this what you were talking about that is really the FYI section? Because that is definitely not all the reasons you have looked at FYIs. You look at them for window sizes and for a whole bunch of other things. So hopefully that was not the FYI section, but my question had to do with sort of cumulative sort of a serial modifications. So I guess, let's say someone came before you and got a couple of variances on a brand new house. And then while they were going along, there were these other things that came along that were falling in this category of decreases in the side setback or whatever else is on here. There are a whole bunch of them. I guess I'm trying to or if someone did this to an existing house and every few years they came back and asked for up to 2 more, is there a way you are flagging, or I mean, is there a way to flag these that it is seen already that this property has already had this and such many of these so-called minor modifications that taken together are pretty major over time? So I guess I don't know how to say it better than I'm saying it. I don't know if I'm explaining myself, but do you understand what I mean? I guess that's my concern is sort of too much. And then, wow, all of a sudden we have a lot that we probably wouldn't have approved had it come in as a straight variance originally or whatever.
Sure. Thank you for those comments. So just to clarify, the minor modification section, these are not referring to FYIs.
Okay.
So these are minor, we consider similar to minor variances where they're asking a slight increase or decrease in certain things. And these actually do get notified. All the residents within 100 feet of the property get notification. I believe the Planning Commission also gets notified. And these are items that can be called up for review by the Planning Commission. So these are separate from FYI items. Generally, in our experience, we've seen that a home, these typically apply to first floor additions that don't require design review. They get their addition, their approval. They don't keep coming back for multiple requests for minor modifications. If one of these is triggered and the project also requires design review, these are not looked at as minor modifications. They're brought forward to you as variances along with the design review. So they are kept track and sort of in that way, but these do not reflect FYIs. FYIs are something different. Okay, let me read the public comment that we received. So this is from Kirk Syme, Director Gardner, and members of tonight's Planning Commission study session. For your consideration, Article 6 includes Section 25.78.050 titled Additional Height in the C1, BFC, and II zoning districts requiring a special permit. We understand that this section has not yet been updated to reflect the more complete land use regulations already addressed in Article 2 and previously reviewed at the study session on May 6th. We also understand from staff that Section 25.78.050 will be updated ahead of the zoning code being presented to the full commission in the coming months. We concur in this direction and that it is important that the previously proposed Article 2 language prevail in the relevant sections in Article 6. So this refers to certain items that require special permits in these zoning districts. And those items that were brought forward to you have not been reflected in this section. That was an oversight on our part. And we'll make sure that that gets reflected in this section as well to be consistent with that other section. So we thank Mr. Syme for that comment.
Thank you very much, Aaron. I don't see any other hands up at this time, so I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment section, and I'm going to open it up back to my colleagues. Did we want to discuss the plate height that Commissioner Say brought up? I remember that we, Dr. Huron, you mentioned that we wanted to maybe try and get the opinion of the whole commission on plate heights. I just wanted to kind of bring it back to that in case my fellow commissioners wanted to give an opinion on that.
Sure. I think from what I'm hearing so far is that perhaps the direction would not be to allow a 12-inch increase, but perhaps to allow an increase up to a 9-foot plate height for additions. Maybe we can get some feedback from the commissioners if they think that's appropriate. We can make that change.
Commissioner Toronis.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little unclear, but because I thought that was already covered, sort of, or maybe I'm just misunderstanding, because on page 24 under design review major, single story unit and two unit dwellings in any zone consisting of the following: a single story unit or 2-unit dwelling addition having a plate height greater than 9 feet above the existing finished floor. So doesn't that mean that if somebody comes before you with an addition that's up to 9 feet, it doesn't require design review? Right?
Mhm.
I mean, that's my reading of that, which I think I guess my point is, I agree with Audrey, but my understanding was that has always been that was already covered by our design review requirements. In other words, if somebody says they want to do an addition and they, as part of their addition, they want to add an addition that has a 9-foot plate, and as part of that, they're also going to revise the rest of the first floor and make it a 9-foot plate as well. My understanding was that that wasn't subject to design review.
Can I interrupt
Yeah.
for 1 second? So I believe, if I understand correctly, that if you change or alter greater than 50% of the walls of the house, let's say, you want half of the house go up to 9 feet, then you can get by without a design review submission. But if you wanted the entire 1-story home to go from an 8-foot plate height to a 9-foot plate height, that would require a design review submission.
Really? Huh.
Right. So section E captures items like, it was meant to capture things like, when someone wanted to do a really grandiose front porch entry and they have a low slung ranch style house, and all of a sudden they want to have a 12-foot tall grand entry, didn't necessarily make design sense. That would have triggered design review. So now what we could do is we could clarify E a little bit more to say that any increase to the height of the existing plate line, above more than 9 feet above.
Yeah, greater than 9 feet.
Like that. Yeah, because this has always been up to interpretation, and it hasn't been as clear, but maybe perhaps that added wording would help to clarify that. And if you're okay with them increasing portions of the existing house up to 9 feet, then we can clarify that beyond that it would trigger design review.
Right. That makes sense to me.
Commissioner Camarado, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so just one comment. So we've had there's 2 properties that I was aware of. There's one on Barriole that was a new construction, single story, and it never came through planning, correct? And I don't know what those floor or those plate heights are on that property, but they've got to be more than 9 feet because it's pretty tall in there. So that never came before us. And then there was another one on East Carroll that I was involved with years ago, but that was also, I think, 10-foot plate heights. But it's a single story, so it never came in front of planning either for design review. So I don't know if I'm mixing things up here, but right. So staff is approving single story additions with plate heights that are greater than 9 feet.
Yeah, and I think in some of those cases, those homes already had a 9-foot plate height, and they were rebuilding or extending off that existing plate height. So that's why it didn't come before the Planning Commission. We can take a little closer look at those to determine that, but that may be the case in those situations.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, my fellow commissioners. I see we have 7 more minutes left on the clock. Does anybody else have any other comments or questions at this time? Okay, so great. Should we go ahead and adjourn? And that way we have a few minutes before the commission meeting at 7.
Well, we do have Article 7, which was a lot shorter, so we can perhaps go quickly through that.
Oh, certainly. I'm sorry. I completely flew over my head.
That's okay. That's okay. Article 7 describes the authority and responsibilities of the City Council, Planning Commission, and Director, and planning division staff in administering the zoning code. It includes procedures for amending the zoning code, the zoning map, and general plan. It also includes procedures for appealing determinations and decisions rendered by the commission and director, as well as calls for review. It outlines the procedures for noticing and scheduling of public hearings. Article 7 is a little bit more straightforward. It's pretty cut and dry. But certainly if you have any questions on Article 7, we can go through those now.
Commissioner Say, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
I just have one quick one on page 3. Under who may initiate an amendment, it says upon application of any property owner or on the initiative of the commission or the council. So my question is whether it's the commissioner, a single commissioner can initiate, or must be a collective whole commission agreed upon proposal for an amendment.
That's a good question. I mean, generally in the past, in terms of city council, it's been the direction of city council. So as a collective group, I think this similar would apply to the planning commission as well. Perhaps it may not include every single commissioner, but a majority of the commission. And we can look to clarify that a little bit more and check in with our consultant about that.
So that would mean we'd have to have some type of a public hearing discussion, and then as a group kind of agree unanimously or majority to propose an amendment.
Yeah, or provide that direction, yeah, to staff, right.
Right, to initiate, okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Do any other commissioners have any questions or comments to make? Nope. Okay. I'd also like to give the public an opportunity to comment on this item. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the public and see if we have any comments.
And while we're waiting for that, we received no public comments on Article 7. So.
Okay, then great. Shall we go ahead and adjourn this meeting? We have 4 more minutes until 7 o'clock. So
Yeah, let's take a break for a few minutes, and we can reconvene at 7 p.m. And we'll start the regular Planning Commission meeting. And all those attendants, thank you for waiting, and we'll start the regular action Planning Commission meeting at 7 p.m. Thank you. If we can have all planning commissioners turn their videos on, we're about to start. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Huron. Okay, so good evening, everybody. I would like to call this meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. Welcome to the July 12th City of Burlingame Planning Commission meeting. For all in attendance today, please note that this Planning Commission meeting is being held using the Zoom webinar format. So you will see the planning commissioners and staff are panelists. Please note that there are several ways to submit comments during this meeting. You may raise your hand in Zoom by clicking on the raise hand button located at the bottom of your screen. Members of the public who are participating in the Zoom webinar by phone call can dial *9 to raise a hand. You may also send your comments by email at publiccomment@burlingame.org, and staff will be monitoring emails submitted during the meeting, which will be read at the appropriate time. The length of the email comments should be commensurate with the 3-minute customarily allowed for verbal comments. If you are the applicant or applicant's representative, I will ask you to raise your hand when your agenda item is up for discussion so that it may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. We ask that you also turn on your video at that time so we can have a more clear communication and stimulating experience. This meeting is being streamed on live on YouTube and will be uploaded to the city's website after the meeting. I'd like to go ahead and move to agenda item number 2, roll call. Also, the record should note that 5 members of our commissioners are present this evening. Chair Schmidt and Vice Chair Loftus are absent. Do we need a roll call, Director Huron?
No roll call vote necessary.
Thank you. We'll go ahead on and move on to agenda item number 3 for the approval of minutes. We have meeting minutes to review and approve this evening from the June 14th regular Planning Commission meeting. Any comments, changes, or discussions? And if not, do we have any motions?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Second it.
Thank you.
Great. Is there any comment on that motion? Otherwise, I'll take a roll call vote. Seeing none. Commissioner Camarado,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Commissioner Toronis,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
and Chair Larios.
Aye.
Great. Motion passes 5-0-0-2.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 4, approval of the agenda. Staff, are there any changes to the agenda? Do we have any recusals tonight?
Yes, we do have one change on the agenda. Item 8D 1509 El Camino Real has been continued to a future agenda. Public hearing notices will be sent out again for that item once it's been scheduled on an agenda. So again, item 8D 1509 El Camino Real has been continued. There are no other changes.
Thank you. Any recusals for my fellow commissioners tonight? No? All right, so we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 5, public comments, non-agendized items. Members of the public may speak about any item not on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to suggest an item for a future Planning Commission agenda may do so during the public comment period. The Ralph Brown Act prohibits the Planning Commission from acting on any matter that is not on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. A timer will sound at the end of the time. I may adjust the time limit in light of the number of anticipated speakers. Please speak clearly into the microphone. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on any item that is not on our agenda? I do not see any hands up. Any emails?
There were no emails submitted.
Thank you. So seeing none, we'll move on to the next item. Agenda item number 6, study items. Seems that we do not have any study items for tonight. So we will go ahead and move on to agenda item number 7. We have no consent calendar items to review this evening. So we will go on and ahead and skip to agenda item number 8, regular action items. So the first one is 8A, 2752 Summit Drive. If you are the applicant or applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Okay.
I visited with and was allowed into the house of the uphill neighbor. Her address escapes me at the 2756 Summit.
Thank you, Commissioner Gall. Commissioner Terrones, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I visited with the same neighbor, Faith Chan, at that same address and got a chance to view the story poles from her property. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear a staff report, please?
Yes, this is an application for Hillside area design review and special permits for an attached garage and declining height envelope for a new 2-story single-family dwelling and attached garage. This property is zoned R1 with a total proposed floor area ratio of 3,243 square feet, where 3,420 square feet is the maximum allowed. The subject property does reside in the Hillside Area Construction Permit District, and review by the Planning Commission shall be based on the obstruction of any distant protected views. A special permit is required for any new attached garages, and due to the downward slope of the lot, the applicant is requesting approval of a special permit for encroachment outside the declining height envelope on both the left and the right elevations. The project went to design review study on March 22nd, 2021, and was referred to a design review consultant. You'll see the design review analysis as well as the response letter from the applicant as attachments to your staff report. This concludes the staff report summary, and I can take any questions for staff.
Seeing no questions for staff, I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you would like to add about your project?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm the homeowner. We worked with design review. Thank you for all the hard work that was put in. And we've made lots and lots of changes to accommodate the previous comments.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Gall, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So, I visited the site and I visited the neighbor's house, and I'm having a little bit of trouble with the declining height envelope, as well as a little bit with the height. I'm wondering, I know that the lot slopes downhill from the street, but did you explore, the design going down the hill as opposed to, going up from the level where you're entering? I mean, because the lot is 12,500 square feet, so you have some room that way. I don't know if you ever looked at that option.
Well, we look at the different options, and the problem with the lot is that there is several utility easements in the backyard. So the pretty much the back of the site is not really buildable, and we're building to the edge of the site of the allowable easement area. So we wish we could go down a hill and maybe that would be helpful, but unfortunately, we don't have this possibility.
Okay, so that's the power poles that you're showing on the site plan.
Yes, there is a power poles and the sewer lines. They roughly 10 feet apart from each other, and they are 10 feet wide.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Toronis, you have a question?
Yeah. Question for either the architect or the property owner. Did you have a chance to view the story poles from your neighbor's property by any chance?
Yeah, we reviewed the story poles from both sides, and we try to accommodate both sides. And as a matter of fact, we step away from property line more than we have to, just to reduce any kind of additional overhang over property line or setback. And I believe we try to accommodate all possible solutions, including all the neighbors' concerns that we kind of like heard about.
Okay, well, as you've probably seen from the story poles, you know, it's substantially higher than any of the neighboring properties. So another question I had was, did you look at any options for, you have the ADU on that lowest level, which, you know, in a lot of hillside homes, when you look at the architecture or the massing, oftentimes that lowest level is simply crawl space. It maybe isn't even a full story. But did you look at any options where the ADU wasn't all the way down on that lower level, and therefore the whole house might be brought down in height a little bit?
Well, first of all, the neighbor on the, let's say, on the left-hand side, their house is about 4 feet 6 higher than the proposed house, and they have access to the main floor from the sidewalk level. When the owners, they have to go down steep driveway with the kids, and it might be a little bit of too much trouble for them. So the idea was to bring the first floor to the level of the street to allow for easily access from the street and sidewalk. That was the main reason why it's being raised up to the level of the sidewalk. On the other hand, we also, our main ground floor is about 14 feet 6 above the sidewalk level, which is pretty much normal for any house in the area to be within these parameters. Second floor below, we pretty much set at the same elevation what the existing house is, to minimize any grading or any obstruction as well. Kind of like said, the main reason for the ADU being lower than that, which is also on the same level as the existing house. We try to do as much of a step down design as possible, but we also within the setbacks for the front and the side, and that was just very hard to accomplish. And as I mentioned before, we have the easements in the back, and the buildable area for this property is so little that it's just hard to fit required.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other of my fellow commissioners have any questions? Commissioner Gall, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Commissioner Toronis' questions made me look at something I failed to look at before. So could you tell me the plate heights or the floor to ceiling heights of each of the levels? They look to all be about, the lower levels look to be probably 10 feet, and the upper one potentially 12 to 14.
Well, The ADU level and the lower floor level are 10 feet ceilings with 1 feet 3 for the floor structure. So which means the 11 feet 3 total. And the upper floor is 12 feet at the highest point, but it's also 10 feet ceiling. So generally it's only 3 10 feet ceiling, 3 levels, 10 feet ceiling each.
Okay, so 10 feet 7 for just how, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Gall. Commissioner Torres.
I'm sorry, hey, sorry to take a second bite, but I'm reading on sheet A5.1, that upper floor is 10'6" for the wall plate typical. Am I reading your drawings correctly? You have, there you have on the left-hand side of this drawing, 10 feet lowest floor, the ADU level, 10 feet for the middle
Yes,
level, 10 foot.
exactly.
So it's 10
foot 6. There's only this area, this portion of the building. The bedroom is 10 feet. It's kind of a steps up. Entry is 12 feet. So it's kind of like an architectural element to bring the difference in the elevations inside the house to make it more appealing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's see. With Commissioner Torres, you just have your hand up, or you have another question? Okay, just had it up. All right. So, do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? Were any comments received through email?
No comments were received through email, but it looks like we have one person wishing to speak, so we can let her in.
Hi, my name's Loretta Chuck, and I did send in an email regarding this project. I'm the homeowner and resident at the house just down the hill, right next door to this property. And my main concern is that my views from my window is blocked very significantly. And anyways, that is my main objection, is the height of the building. And I don't know what else to say, you know, what other things that's how it impacts me. I think it is out of proportion in this neighborhood. I myself have a 2-story home and a ranch home, and I have a steep driveway. So, you know, I basically, it's just a humongous structure. So I thank you for the opportunity to express my concerns, and I am strongly opposed to, you know, to the structure the way it is. So I hope that it can be redesigned to lower the height. And, you know, if they built it the way it is, it would be a 3 stories with full height ceilings. And I just don't think that, you know, that just doesn't work for me. So thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. I'm going to close the public hearing now, saying that we don't have any other public comments or hands raised. So to my fellow commissioners, are there any comments, any motions? Commissioner Gall, you have your hand up. Oh,
Yeah, yes.
Well,
first up,
sorry to interrupt you. I see that Loretta still has her hand up. I just wanted to know if that's just her hand remaining up from her public comment, or if she wanted to add something else. I'll be glad to open the public comment section again to see if we have any additional public comments.
Yeah, why don't we let her back in and see if she has any additional comments? So let me do that real quick.
Hi, Loretta. Did you have your hand up? You're on mute. I can't hear you. We can't hear you.
I'm sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure that, I sent in 3 photos of from my bedroom window, and it shows the building, the structure next door. And I'm just wondering whether any of the commissioners received that email with the attachments, because I sent it to the planning committee. I just want to make sure that that was seen. And whether the commissioners who visited my neighbor Faith Chan in 2754-56, they said they were going to come down to my property, but unfortunately, no one ever came. And I'm just wondering if anybody actually came onto my property, walked down my long driveway, and looked to the side from my side yard to view the property.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment section and then open it back up to my fellow commissioners. Commissioner Gall, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. First off, I want to say I think the design did come a long ways from where it started, and I think that in this area of Burlingame up in the hills is a really good spot for a modern home, especially because it typically incorporates a flat roof, which is going to help with some of the view issues that have been brought up and that may come up in the future. I did, to answer Loretta, I think it is her question, I did go down your driveway today and look up at the story poles from the bottom of your driveway, from the side of your house. And I do agree with you. I think that the house is pretty overbearing on that side, especially because it is so much further up the hill. And that's where I'm having a problem with the declining height envelope exception. On the other neighbor's side, the view, there is a distant view blockage. However, it's from the deck, and typically, and I can be corrected if someone else has a different opinion about this, but typically, we're using the views from the living areas and not necessarily from an outdoor space. However, this deck is covered, so it would count in the floor area ratio. So in my mind, I'm sort of seeing it as, well, this is part of your living space. It's not just an open deck, but it is intrusive onto the view from that deck. And like I say, usually it's from the living space, but this to me would count as a living space because it's included in your floor area ratio and your lot coverage. So I'm having trouble with the mass. I'm having trouble with the view blockage. I'm having trouble with the declining height envelope. I think that the applicant could easily bring the height of the building down by simply lowering the plate heights on all 3 floors. I understand that the power pole is there, but there is also a possibility of doing a separate ADU, a detached ADU that would not be part of the structure. So you might be able to get away with something a little bit further down the hill. So those are my comments, and I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gall. Commissioner Furones, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I agree absolutely with Commissioner Gall. All of his comments included. I had the same reaction in terms of the plate heights. As further evidence, we have the special permit application, which the applicant says that the proposed house will not differ from the pre-existing surrounding structures. And then in response to question 2, they say that it's consistent with the surrounding properties. I guess that's really in regards to the exterior finishes, but nonetheless, I'm having difficulties with the findings in regards to our finding number 3 for mass and bulk of the structure and interface on the proposed structures of the proposed structure with structures on adjacent properties. I visited the adjacent house, looked at the uphill house, looked at the views, and I agree they're from an exterior deck, but it is a viewing deck. It's the prime location where you have any views that look out to the bay, which are the types of views that we've typically looked to consider when we've looked at projects in the Hillside area. They're the other windows of the house are from the garage. I'm sort of discounting that as a view window, but looking more at that deck area. Many of the houses up in the Hillside area, they have viewing decks, on the back side of their house, and that's prime living space, as Commissioner Gall was getting at. So I'm having a hard time with the mass of the structure, just in terms of how it's drastically different from nearby structures. I think that the plate heights could be revisited, as Commissioner Gall was suggesting. That could bring down the overall height of the house substantially. I think, unfortunately, in regards to Ms. Chuck's property on the lower side, any house that's another level above what it is now is going to have some impact on that downhill property. Views of the sky and views, access to, preventing any sort of shading, that kind of thing. That's typically not a consideration that we can make. People have a right to add on to their house. If they're not exceeding the height limitations, then we have to make some considerations. But nonetheless, I think that the height of this structure could be reduced fairly substantially by some methods, and not have as much of an impact on the adjacent neighbors. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Turonis. Commissioner Say?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I agree with my fellow commissioners, Turonis and Gall, in what they just stated. I want to go back to the comment about the ADU potentially being detached. I think there may be difficulty in crossing that PUE and tucking an ADU at the back of the property. That, I don't know if that was explored, but I don't know if that is feasible. But agree that the structure is tall, and is especially tall on the backside, where looks like it could be a multi-unit apartment building in the sense that it's very rectilinear in form and shoots straight up. And that's where I'm having trouble with the declining height envelope. It's an open plan, it's generously sized spaces, and on that main floor, it seems that there would be opportunity to avoid requesting a declining height envelope variance and be able to meet that declining height envelope. And I also agree that each of the floors are very tall. And although I appreciate the level entrance from the street level to go into the main floor, I think you would also have to just acknowledge and recognize that this is a sloping lot, and that it's desirable, but this may be affecting other neighbors in the area. And you could benefit from reducing the height of the structure overall and sinking it down a little bit lower. A lot of the homes in that neighborhood are nestled into the downward slope of the hillside. And this one, is perched on top, and I think doesn't, in terms of massing, doesn't reflect the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Say. Commissioner Camarado, you have your hand up.
Yes, so I agree with my fellow commissioners. I think that the house is just it's just too big for that site. And I don't feel that it fits the neighborhood with mass and bulk. Although architecturally, I think if we're going to do a modern, this is the best place for it. And that's.
Thank you very much. I will say that I'm going to echo what all of you said. Particularly for me, it was the massing. I could not make the findings for the massing was inconsistent with the surrounding structures. So that was the most the part that stuck out the most to me. So just wanted to put in my comment as well. Well, with that said, oh, Commissioner Toronis, you have your hand up. Please go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was just going to head for a motion if I could, Mr. Chair.
Please go ahead. Yes, that's what I was going to signal.
Okay. Well, before I make the motion, I think I would be remiss if I didn't echo what Commissioner Gall said in terms of the design review process. I have to commend both the process as well as the design review consultant's work. The house has really come a long way in terms of being more residential. I mean, I get what Commissioner Say was saying in terms of that back elevation and its height and looking, in terms of the mass, I guess, yeah, it's kind of like an apartment building, but I think the architecture has come a long way. It's much more residential. The use of materials, the application of materials are much more in line with articulating the massing and just giving the house better, a more residential feel just in terms of how it presents itself. But all of that said, I think that the real issue for me, and it sounds like for most of us is, or all of us is the massing. So I'm going to make a motion to deny without prejudice, which would allow the applicant to bring back a recrafted project, but also maintain their rights to appeal.
I would second that motion. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing we have none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Camerado,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Toronis,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Acting Chair Larios.
Aye.
All right, the motion to deny without prejudice passes 5002.
Thank you. So an action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $708, which includes noticing cost. Let's go ahead and move on to item 8B, 1209 Cabrillo Avenue. If you are the applicant or applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able, were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I had an ex parte communication with the project architect just to get a preview of what we were seeing this evening.
Thank you. Let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear a staff report, please?
Yes, this is an application for design review and special permit for attached garage for a new 2-story single-family dwelling and attached garage at 1209 Cabrillo Avenue, zoned R1. The applicant is proposing to demolish an existing 2-story house and detached garage to build a new 2-story house and attached garage. The proposed house and garage will have a total floor area of 3,019 square feet, where 3,020 square feet is the maximum allowed. This project includes building a new detached ADU at the rear of the lot. Review of the ADU application is administrative only and is not reviewed by the Planning Commission. Staff has determined that the ADU complies with the required regulations. The applicant is requesting the following applications for this project: design review and special permit for the attached garage. At the Planning Commission Design Review Study meeting on May 10th, the Commission noted several concerns with the project and asked for additional clarification. The applicant submitted a response letter and revised plans, date stamped June 30th, to address the Commission's comments. Suggested findings for design review and the requested special permit are found on page 3 of your staff report. I would note that we did receive one email after the staff report was prepared, which was provided to you earlier today. It is from Steve Pade and Jane Gumry. This concludes my summary of the staff report. The architect is in attendance, but first, do you have any questions for staff?
Seeing no questions for staff, I'm going to open up the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you would like to add about your project?
Yes, hi, good evening. This is Sohan Talwalkar. I'm the applicant here along with my wife, who's not present. I appreciate the Planning Commission's time this evening. As you're aware, this is our fourth meeting together. And as you remember, our first meeting occurred in November of 2020, about 8 months ago. We have taken your feedback from the January meeting to heart, and I've spent the past 6 months working in earnest, countless hours, tens of thousands of dollars to make a home that ultimately we like, but also one that you, the Planning Commission, would like and approve. That has been our goal along, is to find alignment between the two parties. As you may remember, and apologies for rehashing, but some of this commentary was, back from January, so I'll be brief. But we're ultimately building this house because our current home, which you have all visited, was built in 1920s as a single-story unit, had a crude addition built on top in the 1970s. We have a flat roof, no windows on a few of our walls on the upper floor. And ultimately, it was a crude design and build quality, and a home that ultimately we believe does not fit into this neighborhood in any which way. We want to build a home that reflects the present, but ultimately fits with the existing community. And we realize that that is very important. And that is what Ross will walk you through in detail. Ultimately, I would say that I'm not nostalgic, nor is my wife, about the 1920s, 30s, or 50s. And mimicking or copying a design from these times. As you're aware, for us, these were all exclusionary times in the period of history in the San Mateo County housing. I'm most focused on present and the life that we can build here for my wife, my two daughters, and myself, and would like to continue to cultivate the relationships that we have with our great neighbors. Mr. Gall asked to hear from our neighbors last time, so we provided you with letters of support from our neighbors. These were, revised to reflect the current design. These were the same folks, some of the same folks who have provided support in our initial submission back in November. So please review them if you have not already. We have lived here for the past 6 years. We would like to live here for the next 30. So I would ask you to tell us how we can make that dream into reality. Thank you. And I will now turn it over to Ross and Patrick, our architects, who will walk you through the specific points on some of the changes that you had requested. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Talwalkar. Any questions for the applicant? All right, seeing none, let's hear from Mr. Levy.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Well, thank you to the commission for your thoughts and comments. We've incorporated them in the design you're reviewing this evening. We're working from the initial review that suggested that our site plan, mass, and form are acceptable, and the subsequent discussions that indicated that we were going in the good direction. We've added refined details to address comments about a softened appearance and to address some of the technical questions that were relayed to us. In addition to this dialogue, we've reached out to neighbors, as Sohan told you. We've worked very, very hard to create a solution that is still the contemporary home that our clients desire, while respecting the context that is unique to the Easton neighborhood and Cabrillo Avenue in particular. Our design is a clear set of interlock forms based on a design logic that is easily understood. Cabrillo Avenue is composed of an eclectic variety of styles, neo-historic all the way through ranch. Our project is neighbored by a one-story Spanish Revival and a two-story neo-Tudor. We haven't imitated them, but we have respected them in form, material, and mass. We've created a proposal that binds the neighborhood together. We crafted a simple set of forms incorporating traditional gables, noting from the design guidelines that a critical element in unifying a building and relating additions to existing forms is the consistency in roof forms. Since you last reviewed the scheme, we've further softened the appearance by including eaves, common to most of the homes on the street. They will create a profile and shadow pattern that's consistent with the surrounding structures. Finally, we've regularized the window patterns and included operable shutters. These traditional features provide an additional layer of materiality and detail, further softening the proposal and relating it to the proportions of the homes along the block and to the human scale. In regards to the findings, we believe that this scheme, as modified with your input, addresses each of them. Number one, the compatibility of architectural styles with that of the existing character of the neighborhood. Houses from a range of styles populate these streets with the kind of diversity we expect in a healthy community. We've created a contemporary design that integrates elements of the neighboring structures. It adds its own identity and design integrity, but it binds the block together in massive materials, including key elements like front porches and well-proportioned residential scale windows. Respect for parking and garage patterns in the existing neighborhood. We have maintained the existing driveway location, and we've integrated the garage to the extent that it is nearly indistinguishable. Architectural styles, consistency, mass, and bulk of structures. Houses of many different styles may share common traits relating to mass and scale. The materials in our case are a result of the larger pattern and the design logic. The porch does grow out of the architecture of the residence. And number four, the interface of the proposed structure with structures on adjacent properties. As you heard, we have reached out to our neighbors. We've been very sensitive to the placement and height of the buildings. They sit well below the daylight plane, and we have even commissioned and provided shading studies to our neighbors to ensure that the shadow patterns that we are projecting are in fact true. Finally, landscape, the fifth finding. And from the design guidelines, again, our yards are extensions of our home, and we are able to use them as rooms. This house is specifically designed to have a very direct relationship between the main spaces and the yard, and a very residential type relationship between the front door, the front porch, and the front yard, providing a consistency along the streetscape while maintaining an independent expression. Thank you very much for your time. We genuinely hope to receive your support.
Sir, any questions for the applicant's representative from my fellow commissioners? All right, seeing none. Do we have any?
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Turnes.
I'm sorry. I raised my hand right when you looked away. Sorry about that. So just one final outstanding question. Have you had a chance to review or see the note from Jane Gummery, the left side neighbor, in regards to the fencing and the landscaping?
Yes, I did. And that note is consistent with comments that you received the last time we heard this project. We've spoken to the neighbors about providing hedges for privacy as they've requested. We've spoken to them about engaging an arborist to ensure that there is no damage to the root structure of a major tree in their backyard, and are generally going to provide them with the neighborly consideration that they deserve.
So, and if I can add to that, the light study specifically was commissioned to be considerate of their home, given the proximity of all the homes. So we've had sidebar conversations with myself and Ross to address the issue with the tree, issue with the lighting, and some of the hedging on at least 2 occasions, but certainly within the last set of discussions as well. So we're aptly aware it's important for us to address all of them and be good neighbors.
My reading of their last 2 comments is just in regards to the fence detail that you have on L1.1 and the extent of the hedge. So to sort of put it to rest, would you be willing to work with them on those couple of details?
Yes, of course. And yes. I believe that the note you received this morning was for them to reserve rights. We are in good contact with them, and of course we will work with them.
Yeah, we have a good relationship with them, and we want to maintain that. It's very important to us.
Sounds like it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Turnes. Commissioner Say.
Yes, lastly on that, just wanted to make sure that the tree is being addressed and that its protection that's on the neighbor's lot. Maybe you already mentioned that a moment ago.
Yeah, well, the tree is on the neighbor's lot, but its canopy reaches over onto our lot, so it's reasonable to assume there may be roots there. At the moment, there's a garage structure in that portion of our lot, so those roots may exist underneath it. And our ADU, which is proposed to be there, actually has a setback, and there's things we can do to either work with an arborist and or to modify the setback depending on what we find underground. But we understand how important this tree is. We certainly won't damage it.
Great, Thank you so much for that coordination.
Commissioner Gall.
Yeah, I just had one quick question. On the elevation, you show solar shingle roof. Is that like the Tesla roof?
There are a number of products on the market now, and Tesla is one of them. Yes, it is our intention to have a net zero house. We do the greenest work that we can, exemplary work, if I might say. And in the deference to this committee and into the sensitivity of the residential neighbor character of this neighborhood, we thought it was more appropriate to use an entirely shingled system that produced power rather than solar cells on top of a more conventional roof.
So those shingles would be flat then, like a common composition shingle?
It looks a lot like that, yes.
Okay, because have you, and I'm just out of curiosity, I spoke with Tesla about a year ago about a Tesla roof on a house that we were working on, and they almost shooed me off in saying that, you know, we're really a long ways out and we'll talk to you in a couple of years. So I'm just wondering if you have any experience with Tesla on that, or any other manufacturers of solar shingles.
Well, of course, since the product is new, I have about as much experience as you do. But there are other companies. Unisolar is one, and I believe Patrick can speak to another resource we found, but there are a number of manufacturers who are creating a similar product.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? Were any comments received through email?
There were no comments received through email. I believe there is one or two speakers that would like to speak. So we'll bring them in. Okay, Benjamin Shapiro, if you want to speak.
Hi there. My name is Benjamin Shapiro. My wife and I are the owners of 1217 Cabrillo, a few doors down from Sohan and Sandia. And we just wanted to voice our support of this project. We know that they've made some significant concessions to what their original designs were to accommodate fitting into the rest of the neighborhood. We feel like they have gone definitely far enough in what their original design was to make accommodations for what is sometimes letters from neighbors that don't put their names forth. And I just wanted to put a name and a face to some of the support from the neighborhood. Sohan and Sandia not only have been reasonable in making their accommodations, we think they've built a beautiful home. And we also wanted to support them. They're good people, they're good neighbors, and we hope that you allow them to move forward with the project as is. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Do we have any other comments? I might have seen another hand, unless they lowered it. I see Steve raising and lowering his hand. Steve, do we want to bring Steve into the public comment, into the webinar? He might have a comment.
Steve, if you can unmute yourself and begin speaking.
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Yeah, we're the neighbors on the left side, the small old Spanish revival house, and we wanted to thank the architects and the tall walkers for all their accommodations and changes that they've made over the last months or whatever. They've been very accommodating and we thank them very much. We only had a few minor comments about the landscaping, which we emailed you this morning. And of course, our tree in the backyard. I don't know if it's important, but that these be included as part of the conditions of approval. Not that we don't trust the architect or the tall walkers, but we are concerned that the contractor a year from now, we'll not acknowledge all of this and it will be long gone and forgotten. So that was our only worry. And I know the tall walkers want the same thing as far as the side fencing, not having gaps. That's a simple thing to fix. The screening hedge is only in a portion of the yard, and we were hoping it would be the whole yard. And then assurances on the shade tree in the backyard. So thank you very much for your consideration. And if this can be included in the building permit, that would be appreciated.
Thank you very much. I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, any comments or any motion? Commissioner Terrones?
Yeah, I think that the project has come a very long way. I really appreciate the applicant and the architect, working with us, with the community. I generally supported the project previously. I think that they've made additional revisions to make it feel even more residential than it did before. I think that the project is, as the architect explained, it does sort of pull residential characteristics, from various different parts of the neighborhood without being overly referential. I think it'll be a nice addition at this point. They've addressed the concerns that we've had. I think that the project should be moved forward. I think we could just add a note that any final revisions to the fencing and the landscaping, I think that staff could review those if this moved forward. So I think it's a nice project.
Anybody else have any comments at this time or would like to make a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion never mind, other hands came up. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Commissioner Gall, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to make a motion. I do like this project at this point. I think it has come a real long way. And again, I appreciate, as the other commissioners do, the effort that the architect and the applicant have put in. So I would make a motion to approve the project with the conditions that are in the staff report. I would like to add one FYI, when the roofing material is picked, if we could just get a sample of that, just because I'm not familiar with it and I don't really know what it's going to look like.
I'll second that motion.
Great. Any discussion on the motion?
Quick, just a question of Commissioner Gall, the maker of the motion. Should we have details in the plans of a specific fence that has the gaps that it sounds like they're willing to work through? I don't think that would necessarily rise to the level of an FYI, but should we note something in the motion that could be reviewed by staff?
I think that would be a good idea, that if that was, reviewed administratively, that would be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Would you mind restating your motion, Commissioner Gall?
Yeah, I would. I'd like to see the project to move forward. I would make a motion for approval with the conditions as stated in the staff report, with additional conditions that the fence design is approved by staff internally, and that there's an FYI when the roofing material is picked out, that it will come back to us.
And I will re-second that motion.
Thank you very much. I have a motion by Commissioner Gall, seconded by Commissioner Say. And may we please have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Camarado,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Terrones,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Acting Chair Larios.
Aye.
Right, the motion passes 5-0-0-2. And if we can just have the appeal rights read into the record, that would be great.
Thank you, Director Heron. I'm just scrolling my document. An action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $708, which includes noticing costs. Congratulations. We will go ahead and move now on to item 8C, 1365 Vancouver Avenue. If you are the applicant or applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? I see none. All right, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear a staff report, please?
Yes. This is an application for design review and special permit for building height for a new 2-story single-family dwelling and detached garage. This property is zoned R1 with a total floor area of 3,255 square feet, where 3,255 square feet is the maximum allowed. The applicant is requesting a special permit for the proposed overall building height of 32 feet, where 30 feet is our typically maximum allowed building height. Staff would like to note that the lot does slope approximately 8 feet from the front to the rear property lines, and the proposed finished floor is 7.5 feet above the average top of curb. This application includes a new detached accessory dwelling unit and received all required administrative approvals by staff. This project went before a design review study on June 28th, 2021, and the applicant has provided a response letter addressing the concerns that were brought up during that hearing. This concludes the staff report summary, and I can take any questions for staff.
Seeing no hands raised from my fellow commissioners, I am going to open the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you would like to add to this project?
Hi, good evening. James Chu, Chu Design Associates. The changes were very, very minor. The guardrail upstairs off the master, and also adding a second column on the left elevations. Basically, that's it. So I do not have anything to add. Hopefully the project gets approved tonight. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for the applicant? I don't want to go too quick to the draw like last time. I'm just going to check my screen, make sure Commissioner Terrones doesn't have his hand up, or anybody else. All right. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this item, or any comments received through email?
There were no comments received through the public email address, and I don't see any raised hands.
Thank you. I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, do we have any comments or any motions? Commissioner Terrones.
Yeah, since I had, one of the comments that was addressed at the last meeting, I'll just say that I really appreciate the minor revision to the front porch detailing, adding that second column along the left elevation. I think it helps finish off that porch and make it feel a little bit more like it might have been an original structure. So I think it's a nice project. I think that they've addressed the items that we asked them to look at. I appreciate the fact on that second floor balcony, they've just made it all wood and eliminated the stucco that wasn't anywhere else on the house. So I think it's a good project and should move forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Terrones. Any other comments? Okay, seeing that. Well, we have a. Is your hand still up, Commissioner Terrones? Or
No, if there were no other comments, I was just going to make a motion to approve.
Please go ahead.
Make a motion to approve with the conditions in the staff report.
I'll second that.
All right. We have we have a motion by Commissioner Terrones and seconded by Commissioner Camarado. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, and may we please have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Camarado?
Aye.
Commissioner Gall?
Aye.
Commissioner Terrones?
Aye.
Commissioner Say?
Aye.
Acting Chair Larios?
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes 5002.
Thank you. An action by the Planning Commission is appealable to the City Council within 10 days of the Planning Commission's action. If the Planning Commission's action has not been appealed or called up for review by the City Council by 5 p.m. on the 10th day, the action becomes final. In order to be effective, appeals must be in writing and must be accompanied by an appeal fee of $708, which includes noticing costs. Congratulations. So seeing that we no longer have item 8D, since it's been moved to a future agenda, I am going to move into agenda item number 9. Agenda number 9, let's see, sorry. Okay, agenda item number 9, and we're gonna go with first 9A, 1304 Mills Avenue. If you are the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Seeing none, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear a staff report, please?
Yes, and before I summarize the staff report, just for the members of the public that we're here for 1509 El Camino Real. As Acting Chair Larios mentioned, item 8D, 1509 El Camino Real has been continued to a future meeting date. Let's see, so moving on to item number 9A, 1304 Mills. This is an application for design review for a new 2-story single-family dwelling and detached garage at 1304 Mills Avenue, zoned R1. The applicant is proposing to demolish an existing 1-story house and detached garage and build a new 2-story house and detached garage. With the proposed project, the total floor area would be 3,338 square feet, where 3,420 square feet is the maximum allowed. This application only includes design review. All other zoning code requirements have been met. This concludes my summary of the staff report. The designer is in attendance, but first, do you have any questions for staff?
I'm not seeing any hands from my fellow commissioners, so I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you would like to add about your project?
Yes, good evening, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Jeff Quinta. I'm the applicant and designer. I'm happy to answer any questions or address any comments that you may have tonight. And if I can figure out how to get my video going, which I just did, I am with you now.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Gall.
Yeah, hi. I have a couple of questions. So let's see where I start. Down the lower left I'm looking at the front elevation on sheet A2. It appears that there's a water table about 3 feet up. Is that correct? On the going across the front of the building and actually down the side.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Is the material above and below the same then? Or is it a different material? It's the same material?
Yes, it is. It's the same material.
Okay. And then I noted, you have wood siding, which I think is great. But then you have a 1x2 corner board. Have you considered just mitering the corners of that siding, or are you looking for something specific with the corner board?
Well, we would probably propose to miter that so it's even on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, I just personally, I just think that as the house on the right, they have a mitered siding there, and it has a much richer look than the houses in the neighborhood that do have corner boards. So there's a precedent.
Oh, I see. You're saying miter the siding.
Yeah,
miter the siding rather than the corner.
Correct.
Well, we weren't proposing that.
Okay, it's just my personal opinion. I think it's a richer, more traditional look on a house like this. But that's basically up to you. Like I say, there's a precedent in the neighborhood for corner boards. I've gotten beaten up on this a lot, but I think it looks a lot better as a traditional home. Okay, but I'll move on. I'll keep moving here. So you have tapered wood columns in the front. Are those round or are those square?
Yes. Those
Round or
square
square?
columns.
Square columns. Okay, square tapered columns.
Square.
Okay, got it. And then the last question I have is on sheet A2, again, on your front elevation, on the right-hand side, you have a note. It says 2-inch wood water table on the second floor, but it points to the window. Is there going to be a water table up there also, or is that just a drafting error? You see that note on the
Let's see that.
front elevation? It's like the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th note down from the top on the right-hand side.
That arrow should be a little bit lower. So
Okay.
it would refer to the sill treatment in the window.
Okay. Okay, so that's the sill, not the wall. There's, okay.
Yes.
I got it. Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you, Commissioner Gall.
Okay.
Commissioner Torres.
Yeah, thank you. Question on, what we're seeing on the front elevation, which I guess manifests also on the roof plan. You've got the gable on the second floor, and looking at that front elevation, it's a fascia that's basically really just sitting right on top of the roof of that second floor. There's no gap in between, and I can see that fascia end up being mostly flashing. So did you consider the possibility of just continuing the main gable and I realize that it's, centered over the door, but if you work things left and right, you could probably still have it centered and just maybe have a lower eave on that left-hand side, which is over at bedroom 4, the bathroom and the master bath along there. The other possibility is that if you're up against it in terms of the overall height, you could lower that first floor plate height from 9'10", maybe make it a little bit lower, and be able to still get a higher 8-foot plate on that second floor. You see where I'm talking about? With those, you got fascia on top of fascia, essentially. I'm trying to point.
Oh, I see. You're saying with the stepping in on the second floor, right?
Yeah. The way that you've got, because you have that ridge line centered right, it looks like it's centered right over the door, which is nice. That second floor window comes down, looks like it's centered. But in order to get to your plate heights over on the far left, you got to keep extending the roof up just enough to barely get another fascia in there as a second layer of that roof. So, I'm
right. Yes, correct.
Yeah, you eliminate that second lump and you just let that center gable, as it's centered now, let that eave come down. You'd get a lower plate height along that left-hand side. But if you didn't want that lower plate height in your bedrooms and in your bathrooms, you could just raise that plate a little bit.
I think, I don't think having a lower plate height there would really be much of an issue.
Right.
Because we're planning on doing some vaulted ceilings in here.
Ooh, yeah.
And so, a lower plate height on that side.
That way you've got a much cleaner
or a little bit lower ceiling in the bathroom.
Yeah.
I printed out what was in the staff report, but I'm looking at, I don't have the floor plans printed out here. So I'm trying to go by memory.
So if you just look at, and then if you look
what we have on the left side of the house.
And then looking at I know we don't have the roof plan probably in this set of drawings, but then you would just have a center gable, a center ridge that just goes all the way front to back, and you eliminate that second. There we have it. That ridge line that's at the front of the house could just continue right on back, and it would just be all one clean gable. There's a lot to be said about a nice clean roof plan.
Yeah, that's certainly doable.
Okay. All right. If you could revisit that when it comes back to us. The only other thing is I noticed that you're specifying the Anderson 400 series windows, which is fine. My understanding is they call their they call what we refer to as a simulated true divided light. They call it a full divided light. So if you're going to specify those Anderson windows, if you could just make sure you've got that, but you understand what we're looking for. We're not looking for the grid on the interior. We're looking for the grid.
Yeah, right.
With the dividing
Right.
bar between the glazing.
Right.
Okay, and Anderson calls that a full divided light in their on their brochures. But so okay, I just want to make sure that we're talking about the same thing. So okay, those were my questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Torrones.
You're welcome.
Any other of my fellow commissioners have any questions for the applicant? All right, seeing none, do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? Were any comments received through email?
There were no public comments received through email.
Thank you. I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, do we have any comments? Commissioner Torrones.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just realized I need to backtrack a little bit and mention that I did have an ex parte communication, a conversation with the neighbor to the left, Mr. Gene Condon, who lives at I didn't catch his address, but it's just to the left. If you look at this property, we just talked a little bit about the garage and the existing garage being removed, et cetera. In regards to comments on the project, I think it's a nice project. You know, my understanding from what Mr. Condon was telling me is that there were some issues in the past, or had been some issues with the office that was added on the backside of the existing garage. It looks like those issues will go away because they're demolishing the garage and building a new detached garage. But bottom line, I think it's a nice project. It's well crafted. The proportions seem nice. I think if they just revisited that roof plan and kind of got rid of those layered fascias up on that second floor roof on the left-hand side, I think it would really help the design. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Torrones. Commissioner Gall.
Yeah, I'm going to follow on Commissioner Torrones' footsteps. I did have ex parte communication with the neighbor to the right. I spoke with him and his wife. I didn't catch his name. I was only able to wave to Gene as he drove by in his truck. But yeah, I like the project as well. I think that it could use a little bit of just some of those corrections on the drafting errors. I'm not 100% sure on the water table with the material above and below. It may work. I'm not sure I've seen that. But I'm wondering if there's any thought about changing the material below the water table on the first floor to sort of give the bit of design a base. And I would probably defer to my fellow commissioners for a comment on that. And the only other one is I'm hoping that there's going to be some salvage work done on that. And if you have no one claiming that front railing, let me know.
Thank you, Commissioner Gall. Any other comments? Commissioner Torrones?
Well, just as a response to Commissioner Gall's question, you know, I get what you're saying in terms of the, you know, the sort of the wainscot separated by water table trim. You know, I think it could be highlighted with the paint colors. What I would hate to see, honestly, is if it were changed to, you know, a sort of a fake applique of stone or something of that sort that we ended up getting just on a front facade or something. If those were the choices, I would just as soon see the siding continue all the way around and just, you know, draw some difference, you know, with some paint colors or something of that sort. If they did want to commit to something different at that lower portion, yeah, it could probably read better, but I would just try to, whatever you pick, try to continue it all the way around the house. So otherwise, I think it's a nice project. I think it could move forward. I'm going to make a motion to bring this back on regular action.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion by Commissioner Torrones and seconded by Commissioner Gall. Any discussion on the motion? I have just a quick discussion on this item. You mentioned something about materials, Commissioner Gall, and so did you, Commissioner Torrones. For me, it was hard to visualize, and I'm wondering maybe if we could ask in the next plans to show a sample of, or a picture of the materials that they're intending to use. It'd help me at least visualize better. I defer to you both since you made those comments. What do you folks think?
You know, I wouldn't object to that. I also think maybe a rendering of some type might be helpful. Even if you wanted to add color, as Commissioner Toronis was saying, I think he's on track with keeping the material the same above and below the water table, but you might want to change it up with colors. Nothing, I mean, we don't review colors, but it would set things off and help us to see the overall finished product.
It definitely helped me as a layperson. I can tell you, and it did stand out from both of your comments. So I'm wondering, Commissioner Toronis, would you like to restate your
Sure.
motion?
Yeah, I'll revise my motion to bring the project back on regular action with the added request that we see, if not material sample, at least some cut sheets on the exterior material siding and the corner boards that they're proposing, as well as some sort of rendering or description of how they're going to articulate between the water table above and below wainscot versus the rest of the facade.
No, I will second that motion.
Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Toronis, seconded by Commissioner Gall. I'm gonna just open it one more time. Any discussion on this motion? Okay, seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Camarado,
Aye.
Commissioner Gall,
Aye.
Commissioner Toronis,
Aye.
Commissioner Say,
Aye.
Acting Chair Larios.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0-0-2. This action is not appealable.
Thank you very much. We're moving on to item 9B, 1515 Columbus Avenue. If you are the applicant or applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? Seeing no ex parte communications, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear the staff report, please?
This is an application for design review for a first and second story addition to an existing single family dwelling. The property is zoned R1 with a proposed floor area of 3,391 square feet, where 3,425 square feet is the maximum allowed. There are 2 protected size trees that are proposed to be removed, one located in the footprint of the addition and the second located at the rear, which is said to be in poor health. The city arborist has issued a protected size tree removal permit on June 23rd, which is also included as part of the attachments in your staff report. And this concludes the staff report summary, and I can take any questions for staff.
I'm seeing no questions for staff. I'm going to open the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you'd like to add to this project?
Good evening, commissioners. I'm Ann Revisa with Architecture Allure. We're the architects on this project. As you see, we're primarily keeping the front facade and forms as is and really doing the addition to the exterior of the project and an interior remodel. We are looking to change the exterior materials from, as stated, kind of a dilapidating horizontal board, and we're changing that out to a wood shingle, painted or solid stain. There was neighbor outreach on this project. The owners have spoken with all their neighbors, and they've received at this time just kind of positive support. There's a neighbor across the street who has been there for nearly 30 years, who is very excited to see that the existing facade is being maintained. Any questions?
Any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Say.
Hi, yes, thank you. I just had one quick question. I guess the right elevation. The right elevation, it looks like there, that quadrant to the upper right side of the upper floor is proud of the lower floor.
Yes.
I don't see that in plan. And just wondering if I'm missing something.
No, it is proud and plan. Can we go to the plan? It protrudes. Let's see. You see that it pops out. I think it's probably about a foot proud. The roof form is the same across that piece, so there would be a little bit of a deeper eave on the part. I think that might be also visually what you're seeing, but that rear portion does pop out about a foot.
Okay, let's see. Maybe I'm looking at the front. Oh, so this is back, or not backwards, but the front doors at the top of the plan.
Yes.
And I'm looking at the right side.
That it would be like the low. I think you're talking about the lower left of, if you're looking at the second floor plan, you're looking at the lower left, the primary bedroom.
Yes. Oh, there it is. Okay, I think I just saw it upside down, and I was trying to find it on the wrong side of the house. Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Torrones, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a similar reaction until I realized that the street is on the upper portion on the plans. Question on that same area. So that portion that pops out for the primary bedroom, are those corbels that are underneath there, or that
Yeah.
sort of supporting?
Yeah, correct. We'd be looking at doing something likely more, decorative, but just to give it a little bit of articulation and a bit of stuff.
So if you could note those when this comes back for action, just note what those are and a size, just to have some back. I'm not sure. Okay, yeah, there is something that's shown. I was looking at the rear elevation. Looks like it is. You can see those continuing back to that section that's adjacent to the patio doors. So, okay, yeah, that was my only question on those corbels. Thank you.
Commissioner Camarado.
Hi, yes. Could you share the size of the the back deck on the second floor?
Do we have it dimensioned in the plan?
I didn't see one.
Is it 14? Well, it's not quite 14 feet. It's a little bit less. Oh, do you mean the overall?
Just that second floor deck off the I believe it's off the master.
Oh, wait, no.
It's off the back bedroom. There's a deck off one of the bedrooms, not the master.
No, there's no deck.
Okay.
The existing deck is going away, right?
Correct.
Okay, got it. Okay, understood. Okay, I was looking at it incorrectly. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for the applicant? All right, seeing none, do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this item, or any comments received through email?
We did receive one email from the neighbors at 1511 Columbus Avenue. The letter reads, Dear Burlingame Planning Commissioners, we have lived at 1511 Columbus Avenue, a single-story residence for over 43 years and have come to see the house next door become a lovely Cape Cod. We were able to review the plans on July 9th at City Hall for the addition at 1515 Columbus Avenue. We are very impressed with the new design. It will make the cutest house on the block more distinguished, especially with the addition of the shingles. Our concerns: 3 windows directly overlooking our home, causing a lack of our privacy. In reviewing the plans, we have some concerns with the 2 L-shaped second-story windows on the southwest corner of the house and the 1 study nook window on the left side of the house adjacent to our home. After the large elm tree is removed, the study nook window will have an obstructed view of 3 of our windows, and the southwest corner window will have an unobstructed view of 3 windows, including a family member's bedroom. Further, the L-shaped windows will have an obstructed view of approximately 50% of our backyard, and our yard provides us with a private leisure and an entertainment space for us, our family, and friends. We request that the 2 upper windows facing along the left side be modified to be made opaque and provide privacy screening. Higher up, clear story type windows could also be considered. Additionally, landscaping would also need to be installed to filter the view of our home and provide privacy. 2, the other corner window facing west perhaps could be moved away from the corner towards the middle of the room, reducing the angle to our backyard. This window could remain translucent. Additional landscaping will need to be installed to further filter the view of our backyard and provide privacy. These actions will provide screening, which will ensure our privacy, and we welcome the opportunity to meet and discuss our concerns with the commission members or architect. We wish to continue the good neighbor policy and we have with all of our neighbors and want to come to a mutually satisfying conclusion to this issue. Thank you for your consideration and support, Rosemary and John Troco.
Thank you for that. We do have a hand up from Ms. Troco. Let's see. Did Ms. Treco log out, or is she a panelist? I'm not able to tell.
It looks like we may have. Oh, here she comes. Ms. Treco, there we go. If you can unmute yourself.
I'm sorry. It was, hi. It was just spinning. We couldn't get it to work.
Somehow you were trying to reach us and we were trying to reach you at the same time.
Yeah, we just have a concern regarding the 3 windows. And we would like some consideration so that some of our privacy will not be infringed on.
Basically, the house is a 2-story house now, all these years, but there have been no windows on the 2nd floor overlooking our property there, since we're really close by, except separated by a garage, a driveway, and a little a fence and some shrubbery. It's pretty close together. So having once that big tree is down, that'll be wide open. So those 2 windows that are on the left side would look directly into our property, and that's kind of a real infringement on our privacy, we believe. So the other issue is the 2 windows on the corner. They're similar. It looks like they're sister windows, more sort of forming like an L. We get a real broad view of our backyard, and we use the backyard as an extension of our home. It's been redesigned for that purpose. It's got stone and a fountain and whatnot, and all 3 of our bedrooms open to it, so we can share the use of it, and it is special to us. So having someone directly look at it all the time would be, or have access to looking at it all the time, would be kind of an infringement on our privacy, we believe. So we ask for your consideration on some adjustments here.
Thank you very much for your public comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, any comments? Commissioner Say.
Yes, thank you. I think it's a very lovely designed home. I appreciate that the existing home is retained, that you've maintained the front elevation in full, and it's a quite charming house, and I think that you've incorporated a nice addition into an existing home. So I don't really have any comments other than to support the design, and definitely would encourage you to work with the neighbor to address their concerns for the next go around.
Thank you, Commissioner Say. Commissioner Camarado.
Yes, I agree with Commissioner Say. So I love the design. I love what you've done. It's just very charming for that street. It's a great addition to the street. So thank you for all your hard work. I would ask that you do work with your neighbors and maybe take into consideration maybe some of those opaque windows. We had our neighbor who built a home. He did some opaque ones for his stairwell, and it's created a nice buffer because it was directly into our master bedroom. So perhaps you could take a quick look at that.
Do we have any other comments? See, oh, Commissioner Toronis, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna, I agree with the other commissioners. I think it's a well-crafted house. You know, there's not much changing on the front facade. You know, I think it'll be a nice change to the shingle siding. I'm gonna make a motion to bring this back on regular action with additional encouragement to at least reach out to the neighbors and see if there's a way to work through the window issues. I know we don't have a specific privacy ordinance per se, you know, but I think that there's, looking at the design, I think that there may be a way to recraft those windows rather than corner windows. Maybe there could be one centered on that hipped roof in the rear, and then maybe just do a couple of smaller windows along the other side elevation. But I would leave it to the architect to work that through. But motion to bring this back on action.
I'll second that motion.
Great. I have a motion by Commissioner Toronis and seconded by Commissioner Say. Any discussion on the motion? I will just, as a discussion on the motion, I will just say that I agree wholeheartedly with this motion. And I also think that the outreach piece is key in communicating with the neighbors and working together and finding a solution. So that said, may we please have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Camerado?
Aye.
Commissioner Gall? Commissioner Gall?
Oh, aye. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Commissioner Toronis?
Aye.
Commissioner Say?
Aye.
Acting Chair Larios?
Aye.
All right, the motion passes 5002, and this action is not appealable.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and move on to item 9C, 945 Chula Vista Avenue. If you are the applicant or applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communication regarding this project? Seeing none, let the record note that all commissioners present had visited the project site. Can we hear a staff report, please?
This is an application for design review for a new 2-story single-family dwelling and detached garage. This property is zoned R2 with a proposed floor area of 3,132 square feet, where 3,177 is the maximum allowed. There are 4 bedrooms proposed, requiring 2 parking spaces, one which must be covered. The proposed detached garage would provide the 1 covered parking space, and 1 uncovered space is provided in the driveway. This concludes the staff report summary, and I can take any questions for staff.
Seeing no questions for staff, I'm going to open the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you would like to add about your project?
Yeah, hi, this is Mark Piercy. Can you hear me? I don't think you can see me, but.
No, we can hear you.
Okay, so I'm the architect on the project, and Pete and Judy Staples are the owners and current residents at 945 Chula Vista. And I think in the interest of time, I will just offer to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mark. Do my fellow commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Oh, sorry, Commissioner Gall, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a number of questions. There's some conflicting information, it looks like, in the staff report and on your plans, specifically on sheet A4. You have, okay, I'm gonna start with on your keynotes. You have Tesla solar roof, and I had the same question for a previous application. Have you been in touch with Tesla, or could you provide a sample of that, or are you sold on that? Because you have composition shingle as an alternate, but in my recollection of what I saw with the Tesla roof, I think they're a little bit different.
Yeah, they're quite a bit different. Yeah, the Tesla solar roof is actually something that the Staples have put a deposit down on. I added the alternate in there because the price of the Tesla solar roof recently has been a bit volatile. So we wanted an exit strategy if possible. I think that the clients are quite committed, and maybe Pete can comment on this, quite committed to using the Tesla solar roof if at all possible. We've gone to some lengths to have a fairly simple roof plan, which I think the solar roof will work well with. So, and I think it's actually would be kind of a nice look for this house as well.
Yeah, my main concern is that if you specify something like that, then my conversation with Tesla over the last year was they were still in the developmental stages and they weren't sure when they were going to be able to actually start installing. But
well, there are quite a few. I actually saw two in San Mateo, kind of near Burrell School, whatever area that is. One has been installed for a while. The other, I think, is just finishing up. So I know they're in the area, but you're right, it's kind of limited.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you could get a sample, that would be helpful because we're not real familiar with it. So.
And that's the other thing, Commissioner Gall, that's odd about, well, Tesla is kind of an odd company in some ways, but they do not, I've tried like crazy to get a sample from our rep, and they say we don't get out samples. So yeah. I put a link to a website in my letter. I don't know if you have my letter there, which has it's my letter of explanation, and I could at least bring photos or supply.
Yeah, or even an address of a local application, if you had one in San Mateo, that would be really helpful. Then we can see it live. But
okay, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to keep moving then on same keynotes. So you have wood siding T&G V groove, which in my opinion would be preferable to the hardy siding. But again, if there could be some clarification on that, that would be appreciated. The hardy siding, again, it typically gets a corner board. The T&G you could miter, which I think is a much nicer, more rich look.
I'm sorry, yeah.
And then going down on keynote number 5, you have stone at the base. If you could help us in understanding what you mean by stone, that's pretty general. Or do you have something in mind?
The way it's drawn on the elevation there would just be some kind of a dimensional stone. So not a ledger stone, anything like that. Something with a kind of a more transitional contemporary look is the thought. But as far
would that be only under the front porch there, or would it go underneath the window to the left as well?
It's under the front porch, and actually on the front porch surface would be something similar.
Okay. So it would go around the corner of this front porch also and wrap down the right-hand side?
Correct. Just at the porch, yeah.
Okay. Your wood column, you have detail number 9. Could you extrapolate on that a little bit, what you're intending, or is that just a square column?
It would be a square column. The intent with this house, with the look anyway, the style is, to do something that has a bit more of an updated look. So we've taken away a lot of the detailing that you might see on more of a period traditional house, say the gridded windows and the paneled columns and so forth. And so these columns would actually be just flat, is what we're thinking, painted columns.
Mm-hmm.
There are 2 there. There are 2 at the balcony in the rear as well.
And do you have a
cleaner look? Yeah.
You have an idea on the size that you would be making those?
Yeah, I believe those are shown as 8x8.
Okay.
And the ones in the rear are slightly larger than that to accommodate a steel member for lateral support.
Okay. And then the railing would be metal, I assume, or would that be like a cable system or?
Metal with a wood cap. And what we're thinking is that there would be some, the horizontals would probably be bar stock. So cantilevered corners.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then just one more on number 13 on your keynotes, you have engineered flood opening. That made me think, is this in a flood zone? And I don't see the number 13, or was that, oh, there is one on the next page.
It's on the driveway elevation. So that's the
I see
west.
it.
Yeah.
And is that, are you in a flood zone?
We are. In fact, it's the last house kind of going up the hill that's in the flood zone. In actually the upper part of the site, there are areas which are not in the flood zone, but for the most part, the site is in the flood zone. So we're complying with those.
Okay, so your floor elevation and frame should clear that flood zone plane.
Base elevation plus 1 foot. So base flood elevation here is 16 feet. So our floor elevation is above 17 feet. It's actually like 17 and a half feet. Okay,
I'm just asking because I built a house in a flood zone years back, and we were required to have the floor frame as well above. And what I'm getting at is it may raise the overall height of the house. So if you could just double check on that and make sure that, you know, you've got the whole frame, I think, above, or if that's the requirement still.
Okay.
Not just the floor area, because they get into the mechanical equipment and even just the wood members of the frame they don't want sitting in water.
Right. And I have checked that. And yeah, the floor framing in this case would have to be pressure treated or some flood resistant material. So there are a few options there. But in order to, we start to push the floor up too much, we have trouble with the daylight or the declining height.
Right. That's exactly what I was getting at. Just make sure that if we work with FEMA or whoever, whichever agency it is, has those requirements, that you get that up, because that could affect the overall design height and the look of the house.
Right.
Those are the only questions I had. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Mr. Flores?
Yeah, just one minor one, Mark. I noticed that, you've got the stone just on that front porch platform. Would you maybe consider on the right side elevation, the west side there, maybe just extending the platform of the porch out just a little bit, just so that you don't have the stone, butting right in plane to the wood siding? At least that's my reading of the floor plan. I mean, it's just a minor detail and not a deal breaker, but because that's the only location where you have the stone and you're not continuing it down the rest of the elevation.
Yeah, I agree. Those in plane transitions are difficult. So I think that's a good comment.
Maybe I mean, the porch column can stay, the post can stay where it is maybe, and just the porch platform out a little bit. Looks like you have room on that side to just extend out just a little bit.
We do.
Okay.
Good suggestion. Yeah.
My only question. It's well crafted. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
I am not seeing any other hands up from my fellow commissioners. So I am going to close the public hearing.
We need to ask if there are any other comments from the public.
Thank you, Director Huron. Yes. Do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? Were any comments received through email?
I don't see any comments received through the public email. And I don't see any hands raised, but if I may, through the chair, if I may comment on the solar roofing, just to provide a little bit more information. I believe there was one installed, and we can double check whether this was a Tesla roofing or not. I believe it's on Dwight Road. So I can follow up with the Planning Commission and the applicant on that location to make sure first that it's a Tesla roofing and then the address so you can all go visit it. But I also wanted to note that through the California Solar Rights Act, local agencies cannot adopt any ordinances that create unreasonable barriers to the installation of solar energy systems. And this includes design review as well. So regardless of the type of solar roofing they would like to install, you can certainly look at it for informational purposes, but you wouldn't be able to use it as a denial of any sort of type of roofing. So just wanted to make that provide you with that information, but we'll follow up with that address and make sure that it's in Burlingame, and we can certainly go by and take a look at it.
Thank you for that point of clarification, Director Heron. And maybe a recommendation would be maybe, you could send a letter to Tesla, maybe get a sample. Maybe you might have some better luck than individuals do.
We can try.
Anyhow, I'm going to close the public hearing now. Commissioners, any comments? Mr. Morones, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I've often said that you can tell a lot about a house by looking at a roof plan. And this one's very nice. If you look at the roof plan on sheet A3, you see that, and it speaks of a well-organized, well-crafted house. It's got some asymmetry, but it's balanced with the dormers through asymmetry on either side. It's got a nice clean ridge line. So anyway, just something that I look at as I'm looking at plans. I think that this is a well-designed project. It does something, the one particular that our design guidelines encourage, and that's, taking, if not a first floor plate, maybe a first floor with a little bit of a cripple wall like this one has, and then just tucks the second floors under dormers, as we sometimes seen and often encourage. So, I really appreciate the well-articulated drawings, the shade and shadow that really help. So I think it's a nice project and should move forward to action.
Thank you, Commissioner Toronos. Any other comments? If none, I'm willing to entertain a motion as well.
Commissioner Gall, sorry, you're on mute. There you go.
I'll get this right one day. I like the project as well. I would make a motion to move this forward to the action calendar, as Commissioner Toronos suggested, if that in fact was not a motion that he made. I would like to see a little bit of clarification on some of those details and in the notes that I had pointed out.
I'll second that motion.
Great. I have a motion by Commissioner Gall and seconded by Commissioner Toronos. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Camerado?
Aye.
Commissioner Gall?
Aye.
Commissioner Toronos?
Aye.
Commissioner Say?
Aye.
Acting Chair Larios?
Aye.
All right, the motion passes 5-0-0-2, and that action is not appealable. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to now move on to item 9D, 833 Maple Avenue. If you are the applicant or applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to know any ex parte communications regarding this project? Seeing none, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear a staff report, please?
Yes, this is an application for a design review for a new 2-story single-family dwelling and detached garage at 833 Maple Avenue, zoned R1. The applicant is proposing to demolish an existing 2-story house and detached garage and build a new 2-story house and detached garage. The proposed house and garage would have a total floor area of 3,136 square feet, or 3,244 square feet as a maximum allowed. This project includes a new accessory dwelling unit located behind the detached garage. Review of the ADU application is administrative only and is not reviewed by the Planning Commission. Staff has determined that the ADU complies with the ADU regulations. This application only includes design review. All other zoning code requirements have been met. This is my summary of the staff report. The designer is in attendance, but first, do you have any questions for staff?
I'm seeing no questions for staff. I'm going to open the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you would like to add about your project?
Yes, hello, commissioners. Jesse Gersa, Gersa Conceptual Designs Incorporated. I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to present this project. Again, it's really nice to see everyone again. And we worked very hard on this project with Mr. and Mrs. Leash. And it's a basic old early American colonial style house that we'd like to build. And if you have any questions regarding the design, I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Do my fellow commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Terrones, please go ahead.
Thank you. Well, first simple question, Jesse. Am I correct in reading the plan that you have 3 bedrooms sharing a single hall bathroom?
I believe that would be correct.
In this day and age, is it really 2021 and we're seeing that in a floor plan?
Well, I try to obey what my clients like, so, this is kind of what they wanted to have.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to be sarcastic, but I think I commend you and I commend your clients. It's, I'll say again, growing up, 4 sisters, grandma, mom, and dad, 1 bathroom in the house. Okay, just a couple of questions, Jesse, sorry. On the elevations, looking at the front elevation, the gable, I like the use of the brick on the base. Looking at that gable though, with the arches below, there's not a lot of freeboard where you would see, maybe a keystone or something if this were stone, but above those arches, and it seems a little top heavy. Is it possible to maybe raise that skirt a little bit? I hate getting to the point of half and half, but in terms of top and bottom, but it just seems like that top gable portion is heavier than the brick, and you almost expect it to be the other way around.
Yeah, we can most definitely raise the belly band up, so they'll give it a little bit more of a base with the brick, for sure.
I mean, you're doing something on the ADU, with that gable where it's just all brick, which I think is nice. I don't know if your clients would consider that, but since it's all new, and the advantage of brick is you don't have to paint it in the future, but I think it could read nicely as just all one brick element, but if nothing else, maybe raise that belly band, like you say, and get some proportions with that arch a little bit better and top to bottom. And similar, if we could switch to the next page of elevations on that rear elevation, similar to this with this gable, it's just that very thin bit of, maybe 1.25 course of brick before you get to the belly band.
Okay.
Similarly, if that could be raised, I think it just might help. I mean, it's not a deal breaker for me, obviously, but I respect you as the designer if you could just take a look at that.
It's a great suggestion, Commissioner Terrones. Yeah.
Better to bring that waist up a little bit.
Okay, most definitely take a look at that.
Okay. Otherwise, those are my only questions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Say, please go ahead.
Thank you. Hey, Jesse. Just a quick question for you. On the left elevation, under that gable, is that area intended to be proud of the side of the house, or is it that you're using the downspouts to define that?
You know what? That's a great question. And actually, my wife actually said something about that. And I knew that would be a question that would come up. And yes, I mean, basically the idea there was to make that kind of a enhanced kind of gable facade on that side without bringing that belly band across, also using that as a separation, the two downs, all the downspouts coming down. So, I wanted to kind of get a full height elevation on that. And that was kind of the idea.
So it is the downspouts differential.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Camarado.
Hi, Jesse.
Hi.
I just want to say that I think this is a really cute house and very nicely designed. Thank you for bringing something kind of unique to that area. So good job and thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Camarado.
Do we have any other questions for the applicant? I have a couple of observations. Hi, Jesse.
Hello.
I really like this design on the front elevation. I'm seeing how that kind of the storybook element, number 7, that wood belly band, it feels to me that it kind of conflicts with that downspout. And I don't know if anything can be done there, but it really catches my eye because it's such a nice element. And then I feel it clashes with that downspout right there. I'm not sure if it could be articulated any better than it is, but that's kind of my only observation. But I really like this. Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you. So are we talking about the front elevation, right side belly band?
The front elevation north. I'm sorry.
Yes. Okay. And then the downspout on the left side, looking at the
right side, right above the front door. The downspout that clashes.
Gotcha. Yes. Okay. Yeah, I will make sure that has a better transition with that intersection to make sure, or I could just take that downspout and push it all the way to the rear. That way it isn't at the front, and that way the fascia would be more clean.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just such a nice element, and I feel that it detracts from that really lovely element there.
No, I appreciate that. Yes.
I'm muted. Sorry. Any other questions?
Commissioner Gold, any chimney questions?
No, I agree with most of the comments. The only thing I was just wondering, maybe, and I'm just throwing this out there as I'm looking at the design now. The chimneys, that might be another way to tie some more brick in. I like Commissioner Taronis's idea of maybe that whole front gable, much like the ADU, but that might be a lot there too. And I don't know on those chimneys, but
I can talk to my client about it.
Yeah.
Kind of mull it over.
Just the brick is really a nice element, and I think maybe that's the one thing I've been scratching my head on. Maybe there's just not enough of it. I don't know.
Okay.
But just a thought. I like it overall. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
All right. Seeing no other questions or comments, I'm going to open the public hearing. I'm sorry. I'm going to ask for any members of the public who wish to speak on this time. Were any comments received through email?
No comments were received through the public comment email.
Okay, and I don't see any hands up. I am going to close the public hearing. Commissioners, any comments? No comments. Any motions? Commissioner Taronis.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to bring this back on regular action.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Taronis, seconded by Commissioner Say. Any discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, may we please have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Camarado?
Aye.
Commissioner Gall?
Aye.
Commissioner Taronis?
Aye.
Commissioner Say?
Aye.
Acting Chair Larios?
Aye.
Motion passes 5002, and this action is not appealable.
Thank you, and we are going to move on to item 9E, 123 135 Primrose Road. If you are the applicant or the applicant's representative, please raise your hand so that we may be prepared for you to speak at the appropriate time. If possible, we ask that you also turn on your video at that time. Were any commissioners not able to visit the project site, or do any commissioners wish to note any ex parte communications regarding this project? All right, seeing none, let the record note that all commissioners present have visited the project site. Can we hear the staff report, please?
Yes, this is an application for environmental scoping, design review, special permit for architectural features extending above the maximum building height, and lot combination for a new 14-unit multifamily apartment building with at-grade parking at 123 to 135 Primrose Road, zoned HMU. The applicant is proposing to combine lots 2B and 3 to create a single lot that totals 10,716 square feet. The existing single-story office building at 123 Primrose Road would be demolished. Lot 3 is currently a vacant gravel parking lot with 12 parking spaces that are leased by the United Methodist Nursery School at 1443 Howard Avenue and Call Primrose at 139 Primrose Road. These leased parking spaces are not included in the existing parking calculations or in any existing conditional use permit for either the nursery school or for Call Primrose. The proposed apartment building would have at-grade parking and a lobby, 14 residential units in the 3 stories above the garage, and a rooftop terrace. Each of the proposed living units contains a kitchen and living room, bedroom or bedrooms, bathrooms or bathrooms, and a laundry room and balcony. Unit sizes range from 916 square feet to 1,946 square feet, and the average unit size proposed is 1,237 square feet, where the maximum average unit size allowed is 1,250 square feet. In addition to the lobby on the ground floor would also contain a mailroom, storage, elevator, stairway, and trash enclosure areas. As noted before, the proposed project includes 7 one-bedroom units, 6 two-bedroom units, and 1 three-bedroom unit. And therefore, the total number of parking spaces required for the residential units is 18 spaces. A service or delivery vehicle is not required for apartments. However, the project does include 1 designated service and delivery space. No guest parking is required for this area. So as mentioned, 18 spaces are required. 20 at-grade parking spaces are provided in the parking garage. All of the proposed parking spaces are located in the parking garage, which is at grade. An automated stacker system would provide 6 parking spaces, and the remaining 14 spaces would be provided at grade. All vehicles would enter and exit the proposed project through the driveway on Primrose Road. This evening, the Planning Commission should review the proposed project for areas of potential significant environmental effects and provide direction on the design of the project, as well as the special permit for the architectural features extending above the building. Staff would note that several emails were received after the staff report was prepared. These were provided to you earlier today. They were from Shannon and Richard Churko, the Primrose Gardens Homeowners Association, Audrey Guo, and Rosa B. De La Rosa. There was a public comment also from the Primrose Gardens Homeowners Association. I will read that during the public comment period. But this concludes a summary of my staff report. The architect is in attendance, but first I'd be happy to take any questions of staff. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Director, Commissioner Terrones.
Yeah, just a question of staff. Ruben, just so it's clear and maybe for the public as well, the
Commissioner Terrones, you went mute.
I muted myself, sorry. That means you heard all my page flipping and other noises I was making prior. Sorry. Ruben, just for clarification on the height for myself and possibly for the public. The project is allowed a height of 55 feet by right, correct?
Correct.
Okay, based on this area of the downtown plan, et cetera. So the project is proposing 53 feet and change, 53 feet 7 to the main parapet. The special permit then is for those areas of articulation as we're describing for the stair enclosure and elevator overrun, correct?
That's correct.
That are above that 55 feet.
Right. And they're allowed to extend up to a maximum of 10 feet above the maximum building height allowed. So they can go up to 65 feet, but it can only cover, I believe it's just 5% of the roof area, and they're under that as well. So it's just for the stairway and elevator enclosure And the idea here is that those elements would be integrated as part of the architecture of the building.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Commissioner Say.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to get a clarification. Ruben, you just said 5%. Is it 5% or 10%?
Let me take a quick look here.
Our staff report says 10% allowed.
Yes, you're correct. Sorry, it's 10% of the roof area. And they are proposing, the area that extends above the roof height is 9.9%. So they're just under that 10%.
Okay, and I have another question. That required first floor at 15 feet high, that could be residential space. I mean, that can be, obviously they account for parking and everything, but if it was designed such that the residential units were on the main floor, that is acceptable?
The code actually only allows the residential units to be above the first floor. So while it's not a requirement to have commercial space on the ground floor, the lobby areas, mailroom, storage areas, trash enclosures that are related to the residential project can be on the ground floor. It's just that the actual residential units must be above the first floor. The 15-foot first floor requirement was, I think, originally intended to have commercial spaces in those ground floors, and that additional height would allow for, duct working and that sort of thing, mechanical equipment that runs above in the ceiling. But again, it's the commercial space is not a requirement. Other related uses to the multifamily residential project can be on the ground floor. But the idea was to try to get taller ceiling heights along the ground floor in this downtown district.
Got it. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for staff? All right, seeing none, I am going to open the public hearing. Would the applicant please come forward and state your name and anything else you would like to add about your project?
Hi, my name is Viera Wong. I'm one of the property owners. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Also in attendance are my sister Sylvia Wong and my parents Albert and Teresa Wong. This property has been in our family for decades, and our office is situated actually just a few blocks away on Primrose. We've been there for over 25 years. Love the neighborhood, know the neighborhood, and we're excited to start this project. Our architects Abba and Tony from Carrasco and Associates are also in attendance and can answer any technical questions you have about the project. That being said, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you very much. Do my fellow commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Terrones, please go ahead.
Yeah, I have, I guess, kind of a design question in regards to the lobby. In visiting the property and kind of walking the street there, along Park, I was wondering if you might consider revisiting the corner of the lobby that kind of looks back toward Howard Avenue, and looking at the floor plan now, you've got kind of a hard corner there with the mailboxes, with the window that looks out towards Park. But I think in looking at the elevation, along that west side, you've got an opportunity. You've sort of sculpted the base of the building and the wall that leads to the stair that comes down to, just at sort of walkway height along there. And there's a window that's in the lobby tucked back beyond the mailboxes. I was wondering if you might consider flipping those, maybe moving the mailboxes back and maybe getting a corner window out there. Reason being, I think walking along Park as you're coming to the building from Howard Avenue, let's say you're in the downtown, particularly in the evenings, you get kind of a glow from the lobby out of maybe some corner windows there. It might just help, sort of present the lobby area to pedestrians along the street instead of just looking out, toward, are we on? I keep saying park. I should be saying Primrose, shouldn't I? Sorry. It's looking out to the street. If there were some corner windows, if not corner, at least a window, towards the corner, a little bit closer out to towards the street, it might just help with sort of the inviting feel of that lobby. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, good evening. This is Abha Nehru, and I work for Carrasco and Associates. That's a good comment. Yes, absolutely, we can do that. We can make that corner be similar to the floors above, or at least the fourth floor has a similar corner there.
Right.
So it will complement that. We would love to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. Sorry for my confusion on the street. Anyway.
Nope.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Do we have any other questions for the applicant?
Can I make a few comments on?
Let me go ahead and yes, please go ahead. But please go ahead, and then I will go ahead and we have.
Yes. Okay. All right. So I just want to say a few things. Most of it has been covered in the staff report. I want to say overall the project conforms to the HMU district and downtown specific plan regulations. And in the design features, we've included variation in building volumes on all sides using recessed decks and stepped facade. The front facade has a well-defined base, middle, and a top. And we also have a stepped parapet on 3 sides of the building and has a darker color to reduce the height impact along the building edges. The owners have selected an earthy color palette for this project, which is complemented by the proposed landscaping. The landscape screening that is proposed along the shared property lines will have mature 24-inch box trees to reduce the privacy impacts. And along the eastern edge, especially, the proposed building is set back further than the minimum setback allowed to give more distance to the neighboring development. And the trees planted along this line, along this edge, will cut back the views of the neighbor's west-facing deck. And these decks on the neighbor's property, on the left of our property, is in the rear half of the project site. And you can see an outline in our site plan sheet. And we also have a rooftop garden that's been located in the center of the roof to allow additional setback from the shared property lines and privacy. We will also prepare a shadow study to see impact on the neighboring properties, especially the residential properties adjacent to the site that are on east and south side. And we look forward to all your comments and feedback. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Say, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to ask for a clarification on the rear elevation. Is the second stair enclosure showing, or is it not visible from the plan? I think it's supposed to be visible, but I don't see it on this elevation. I might be just reading it wrong, but I wanted to ask.
The stair enclosure actually steps back. So after it reaches a certain height past the first floor, it steps back. And that's why you're not seeing it.
On the rear? Okay.
Yes, yes.
All right, thank you.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm looking at the first floor plan, and I don't see a dimension on here of how far you are from the property line on the left, or is that 5 feet?
5 feet is on the first floor just for the parking. There is no wall, there are columns at the corners. And for the floors above, the setback varies from 13 to 16 feet.
Okay, 13.
Second to foot, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Because on your third floor plan, it looks like it's 10 feet on A2.3 from the balcony
to the balcony edge.
Yeah, to the, so,
The front
so
balcony edge. Yeah.
from the property line to the balcony edge is 10 feet, but to the living space, it would be like 13 to 16. Is that what you're saying?
16 feet, yes.
Okay. Okay. The only other question I have is on sheet A 0.5, and this may just be, I like the perspectives. I'm glad those are always helpful if you supply those. However, the utility poles look like they're a little tall.
In proportion, yeah.
These right there. Because if that building's 53 feet, those utility poles look like they'd be close to 65 feet. I don't think that's helping your perspective.
Right, you're right.
So if you could look at that. And then the only other question I have is, have you by chance done a just an outline of the elevations of this building and the buildings on either side? It's helpful sometimes to see, you know, how they fit in scale with the buildings next to them. You know, it doesn't need to be a rendering or anything. Just if you could provide an outline just to show it helps with the massing and how they fit in with the size of the buildings to the left and to the right.
Sure, I don't have it here, but we
Yeah,
do
no,
have,
I mean, for the next round, we have a little ways to go on this project, I'm sure. So, but just if you could provide that, it's helpful to me. And like, for example, on your view 1 here, it looks like your building is standing by itself and there's no church back there, but I think that the church is a little bit bigger than I can't remember, but.
yeah, I think the zoning analysis sheet shows the street view with the adjacent homes, but we can provide the outline to show.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah, just so we get a sense of scale.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Do we have any other questions for the applicant? I have a quick question for you. I'm seeing on the rendition here a terrace garden on the top with a structure there. It seems to look like a pergola to me. And I'm wondering how, I don't know if it's just a feature for the rendition, but I'm wondering how tall is that? Because from the rendition and on the west elevation, it's really visible. And so I'm trying to just kind of visualize what people up there would look like and just how tall that pergola would be. I don't know if it's just because of the rendition, but maybe you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, this would be lower than how it looks here. And because it's set back, you'll see very little of this. This would only be about 8 feet high, and it doesn't have any horizontal members except that it's just framed outline. We are not allowed to do any cover over this trellis. So, and we will show it. It doesn't depict correctly in the rendering there. It should be lower than that.
Thank you.
It's only 8 feet high. Yeah.
Any other questions from my fellow commissioners? Seeing none, do we have any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? Were any comments received through email?
Yes, we did receive one comment through the public comment email. I can either read that now, or if you'd like to take in the public comment from the public that's in attendance tonight, you can do that.
Let's give priority to the attendant who is here tonight.
All right, we have Shannon Cherkop in here as a panelist, so anytime you're ready, you may speak. If you want to just unmute yourself, Shannon, and you can start speaking.
Hi there. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. My name is Shannon Cherkop, and I own Unit 1 at 119 Primrose Road, so I'm part of the Primrose Garden HOA. When you look at these renderings, that's my living room and my bedroom depicted right to the left-hand side of the rendering. Ruben's going to read something out loud, so I won't exhaust this by repeating everything, but I wanted to pop on here and just emphasize that I don't think the renderings fairly portray just how we access our homes here at our townhome development. So I want to walk the group through it very quickly. When you're looking at the development, to the left, we have about a 4-foot walkway. It's a flagstone walkway where we access our mailboxes, and then there's a brick arch. It's a very cute archway. We go through there, and that's how we get to our front doors. So I wanted to explain that to the group because that's our front doors. Those are our living rooms and our bedrooms, and we're facing directly at the development. It's not to the side, it's not askew. We look directly at this development. So I wanted to explain that because the sight lines are so important to us. We certainly won't see any more blue sky when we look out of our windows because this building is very high. But we really ask that you think about the cohesiveness, the massing, sight lines, our own privacy, that a shadow study is released. And I just wanted to express we're really alarmed that it's going to negatively impact our quality of living, but also the value of our townhomes. So that's what I wanted to contribute. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Shannon, for your public comment. Director Huron, you have an email. We could go ahead and read that out now.
Great. Okay, this is from the Primrose Gardens Homeowners Association at 119 Primrose Road. This comment is on behalf of the homeowners that make up the 6 families that make up the Primrose Gardens HOA, the 6-unit townhome building next door to the proposed development. We publicly ask that when the Planning Commission and the developer examines this application, that they take into consideration 1, our privacy, 2, the height, and 3, the massing of the building. We have written our concerns in detail to the Planning Commission and want to use this opportunity to emphasize those concerns to the public. You can see in the renderings our little building to the left. Our townhomes are oriented so that our front doors are facing the new development. The walkway that leads to our front doors runs the length of the property line between our homes and the adjacent property where the proposed development is. This is something that's not shown or obvious in the developer's renderings. Regarding privacy, we'd like to have a better understanding of sight lines from those indoor-outdoor living spaces into our bedrooms and living rooms. Some of our units have skylights mounted on a pitched roof that will give the neighboring development a bird's eye view of our beds and bathtubs. Can those balconies be shifted to avoid infringing on our privacy? Maybe more creative screening on the balconies. We'd like a high, attractive, good neighbor fence and lush plantings to create some nice separation at the ground level. We'd like to see more detail in the landscaping and fencing. Regarding height, is the 55-foot height necessary and cohesive with the rest of the block? Our parcel is already at its highest and best use and will not be redeveloped to be higher. Our quaint 2-story homes will forever be dwarfed by this proposed building. A shadow study should be carefully considered as part of the environmental study because we're concerned most of our daylighting will be taken away with such extreme height. Certainly there will be no more sunsets, no more views of the church steeple or swaying eucalyptus trees on El Camino. Townhomes share sidewalls, so we rely on this side of the building facing the development for sunlight through our windows. Regarding massing of the building, please consider the massing of the building towards our property and whether instead of this boxy mass, there is some way to create a better transition between the scales of the building. Again, this is because our residences face directly at the new development, not to the side, not at an angle. Thank you for your careful consideration of our quality of life as the next door neighbors.
Thank you very much.
I believe there's also another member of the public, Jennifer Pfaff, who would like to speak.
Thank you.
We'll bring her in.
Oh, hi there. I just have a couple of, oops, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Sorry about that. I just have a couple of observations. I had to do a recall of why we included those 3 parcels in the, I guess it's Howard mixed use. I'm trying to remember. And it had to do with their current use, I think, is why they were included, which in turn changed their setbacks and also change the height of the first floor, because it was assumed back then that they would be part of the retail experience. So therefore, zero setback. So it's all moot now, but the sidewalk is it's 5-foot sidewalk. I measured it. My concern was, oh my gosh, this thing is kind of in your face, and it is not a retail, so it's not necessarily engaging. So I just wanted to throw something out there. And I love Richard Taronis's suggestion about making that corner transparent. I think it's what he was saying, kind of mimicking what is above it. But maybe it's possible, since this is not a retail space, it may never be a retail space, maybe there would be a possibility, because it is a residential and we can't fiddle with the setbacks now because it's already been done, because it would have been nice to have the 5 or the 10 feet setback there, but maybe we could lower the plate height on that first floor to, I don't know, 12, whatever is reasonable, rather than is it 15 now? I've forgotten. Maybe, I know it's not a lot, but maybe that would help push it down, at least some, and make it less, I don't know, so solid looking, so massive. That was just my little suggestion. Thanks.
Thank you for your public comment, Jennifer. So seeing that we don't have any more hands up, I'm going to close the public hearing. Now I'm going to open it up to my fellow commissioners. Do we have any comments? Commissioner Taronis?
Yeah, well, what we have before us in terms of the entitlements is the design review, the environmental scoping, special permit for the height, and the other entitlements are just really related to the lot combination and condominium permitting, or excuse me, the tentative parcel map permitting that's necessary just for the project to happen. So really the discretionary permits, for the way that I see them, are design review, the special permit for height. So in terms of the special permit for height, we have, like I was mentioning before, or like I was asking about, the height that's allowed by right is 55 feet. The project generally is lower than that, and we have special permitting for heights beyond that to a certain extent. I think that the special permit for height kind of goes hand in hand with one of the issues in terms of the environmental scoping, and that's, for me, is the roof deck. I think one of the things that I'd like to see is some analysis of potential impacts of that roof deck and any noise elements. We've had, a couple of instances where we've encouraged some roof decks just as a benefit to occupants, to try to add some features to the apartment living that we've seen. We've seen some that are very successful because they're in sort of the areas of multifamily housing and other units, other areas where we have projects that abut lower scale residential that make roof decks difficult. So I think we should see some analysis on that. And where I was going in terms of the special permit for height is that I think that the stair and the elevator elements that break that 55-foot height actually help sort of enclose those roof deck areas and kind of contain them a little bit, articulate them a little, so that we just don't have large wanderings of roof deck on a large open roof. So I think those two things kind of work together, and I think actually sort of help each other. In terms of the objective standards that we can apply, we have the design review, just in terms of how this fits into the context of the area and the downtown. I think it's a well-designed building. I would like to see the owners, the architect, the developers address the issue of that first floor. If they are designing a first floor simply at 15 feet, simply because, as Ms. Pfaff was indicating, that's what the requirements are for this area. But since it's not commercial space, maybe that could offer some relief in terms of the height, and it could help with the economics. I would assume, to bring down the height of that those lobby spaces if they don't need to be 15 feet tall. I don't know what the process would be, but maybe staff could look into that and see what we could do in terms of looking at some possibilities for a different height at that first floor. Other than my comment on the lobby and those corner windows and trying to make it a little bit more inviting, I don't have any other issues relative to the design. I like the way that the project actually steps away from the project to the left and offers some relief along that side in terms of the setback and the articulation. And I think the architecture is rather nice and handsome. So I would like to, those are the comments that I would like to see studied as this moves forward to action. And I think we just have to remind ourselves of what we consider what we can consider in terms of the objective standards that we apply to the project as this moves forward towards action or any revision. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Terrones. Do we have any other comments from my fellow commissioners? Commissioner Gall, go ahead.
Yeah, the architect indicated that there's a shadow study. I'm working more towards the environmental scoping part of this application. The architect had indicated there's a shadow study. I would like to see that in the next go around on this project. I think that is something we need to consider especially with the property to the left. And the other thing I'm concerned about, as I have been in other projects where we're increasing in the housing density so much on one site, is the water consumption. And just in going quickly over the floor plans, it looks to me, I'm guessing that the existing building has maybe 2 bathrooms and a kitchen. And now we're going to have, we're adding 14 dishwashers and 14 clothes washers and 19 toilets and 19 showers. And on a conservative estimate, I would say 30 people, probably closer to 40 or even 50 in this. So I think we need to take a close look at how much water we're consuming on some of these projects, because it is a limited resource. As far as the design goes, I like the design. I think it sits real well, but I'm just a little concerned about the scale with the buildings to the left and to the right. So I think just a simple drawing to show the scale as it fits into the street elevation would be helpful. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gall. Commissioner Say?
Yes, thank you. I agree with my fellow commissioners, Gall and Terrones, on what they have commented on already, so I won't repeat those elements. But I did want to state that I like the fact that all the active energy for this unit at the entrance is directed to the right side of the property and away from the closest residential neighbor. So I think that that's a great decision. It's oriented also towards the central downtown area, and that makes a lot of sense. So I think that that's a good choice that you've made. I wonder if the garage entrance could be set in somewhat as a bit of an offset, knowing that the neighbor to the left, that immediately as you pass the front face of this building is the entrance and gate to those properties, that it could help to relieve a little bit of that, the corner or that edge of that side of the property, and so consider a little bit less massing, especially again at this 15-foot height. And if you continue to pursue that, I think that could be something that could be considered to soften that front edge of the building. Otherwise, the building, I think, is very nicely composed. I like the material choices, the colors. I appreciate that the corners are being utilized as balconies and decks that provide a pass-through in terms of space, and not just a solid structure at the corner with glass or other built materials. I think that helps to soften a rather large mass of building. And I also wanted to say, and I will repeat that I liked, as Commissioner Toronis had mentioned, that the elements that are up above the building height limit, I agree that they help to shape and articulate that space on the roof deck. And I think that's nicely and creatively laid out to work well with those areas. And again, that those areas are oriented towards that active side of the building to the right. I would like to see a noise level study. So I'm sure that's coming next, and I think that's been mentioned already. And one thing I'd forgotten to ask about, but maybe ask that the applicant and architect consider it next time around, is what could be used of that landscape area on the ground level at the back of the property? Is that of any use other than landscaping? Could that be a dog walk? Could it be a meditation space or just a quiet space to get away? So I think that's it for me, but thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Say. Commissioner Camarado?
Yeah, so one of my big concerns about the property, about the development, is the busyness of St. Catharines on that street. So I live 3 blocks away and walk to town probably 2 or 3 times a day. And the traffic of the school, going to school and picking up, goes right into that between the gym and the school, and it backs up all the way down to Howard, and or to Bayswater. So I would strongly suggest looking at the entrances of the garages and how we could somehow, you're not going to get out of those garages if they're on Primrose. You're not getting out during busy school time. It's pretty packed there. So I'd like to have you guys maybe take into consideration where the garages are and the impact of the school hours. Unfortunately, you won't be able to see the traffic right now because school's out, but I think next time it comes in front of us, look at that traffic at St. Catharines. So I think that's going to impact the in and out of that garage.
Thank you, Commissioner Camarado. On that note, I also agree. I have a double-pronged concern about the school. One is the traffic. So I just want to echo what Commissioner Camarado said about the traffic that can create problems. But also I want to also emphasize what Commissioner Toronis suggested about containing that upper deck. Just want to remind that children are playing in front of the school. There's a basketball court. And so I think Commissioner Toronis really gave some great suggestions on how to contain that area and how to use some of the architectural elements to kind of create an envelope and help contain that area. So those are the 2 primary concerns for me, at least. Commissioner Camarado, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just one more comment about the rooftop deck. So I understand our concerns about the rooftop deck here, but what I would say is that you do have a lot of activity on the street with the school and it's not the Samaritan House, but it's the Primrose food bank there. So having a rooftop deck there, I don't know that it would the noise would impact so much on the neighbors, but I agree with Commissioner Toronis that perhaps we should look at that. But I would say that it's pretty busy. That area is constantly moving and there's a lot of activity going on that street. So I don't know that the impact of noise, if it's set back and controlled a little bit back with some nice trees or foliage, that it might be just fine there.
Thank you, Commissioner Camarado. Any other comments?
Through the chair, we will not need a motion or a second on this project since there's environmental review here. It'll just come back on for regular action. So no vote is required.
Thank you, Director Heron.
I'll second
that. So we are going to move on to agenda item number 10, commissioners' reports. Commissioners, do you have anything to share? Nothing to share. All right, let's go to agenda item number 11, director's reports.
Sure. Well, first, I wanted to thank Acting Chair Larios for stepping in again tonight and running the show. And also for the rest of the commission these last couple of months on all the study sessions. We appreciate your time and input, very valuable input. And for that, we'll give you the next meeting off. So July 26th. The meeting has been canceled as was approved last year. So no meeting on July 26th, but we will reconvene on August 9th. At the last City Council meeting, there was action taken on the wireless ordinance, and I'll have Assistant City Attorney Spansale briefly summarize that for us.
Thank you, Ruben. I'll give a quick update. Don't want to go into too many details. I know you all saw that in May of this year, but on June 21st, the City Council held their public hearing on the ordinance. And if you remember, that ordinance updated Chapter 25.77 of the zoning code, and it removed the regulations for wireless facilities in the public right-of-way there. And they created a new Chapter 12.11 where those public right-of-way wireless facilities are going to be governed now. So we did this mostly because of the short shot clocks that were kind of an issue. And again, the new Chapter 12.11 provided that permit process and the permit review procedures for small cell facilities, which are kind of the new craze in wireless technology and what we're seeing pop up kind of around all cities in California and around the country. So the good news is, for the Planning Commission at least, is that most of these will not be going in front of you anymore. They're going to be going in front of staff. So leading with the good news, gotta bring the bad news back, and that's conditional use permits are still going to be heard by the commission with an appeal to the council. But those are only needed for major cell sites and other installations that are not considered small cell facilities. These are not going to be the bread and butter of what we're probably going to be seeing. And at the June 21st introduction, council supported the ordinance, but they did have some feedback on things they wanted to see changed in the resolutions. If you remember, there was a design standard resolution. There's also a draft municipal facility license agreement, and that's basically the city's agreement with the carriers. We worked on those. Some of the things that they asked that we did bring forward were we added language that all the facilities had to be constructed or coated with graffiti resistant materials, and that any graffiti that came on the facilities had to be removed within 5 days unless the city gave the carrier an extension on that. We also added a location preference order, which put the city council's desired location for wireless facilities in there, which included a higher preference for parks and open space, but also a lower preference order for schools and licensed daycare facilities. There was a space requirement on how much space can be included in the shroud on these facilities. We also offered, because the city council was worried about noise, and I think that was a concern by the planning commission as well, there was additional space if they can put in a passive cooling system, which is a much quieter operation. And finally, they passed it all. I guess that's the most important thing to know. And the ordinance will go into effect 30 days after, and it was passed on July 6th, so around August 6th, that'll go into place and the resolutions will go along with it. So I hope this will be the last time you hear about wireless for quite a while. I'm sure it won't be for me, but I'm hoping that it will be for you for a bit. So thank you, Ruben, for letting me give a quick update on that.
Sure. And yeah, Scott put in a ton of time and effort and work into that. So I appreciate his work on that and leading the charge on that. So thank you, Scott. Well, that's all we had. If there are any other questions from the commission, otherwise Acting Chair Larios can adjourn the meeting.
Yes, sounds good. Thank you for the update. Just want to say good night to everyone. And again, thank you for your patience and thank you for your service. Meeting is adjourned at 9:45 p.m.
Thanks,
job.
everyone. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Great
Enjoy your
week.
summer.
Everyone.
Yep.
Thank
Have
you.
a great week.